Hey everyone, it's XCOM run number 26, and this one is gonna be bad, really bad. For today, we are using only WotC Sharpshooters. So let's look at the rules and then we'll jump into exactly why this run is going to be so awful. We're playing with Commander difficulty, we're playing with Honest Man rules, so we're only reloading in the events of misclicks, glitches, or other such nonsense. And of course, we can only use WotC Sharpshooters in combat. Now, of the 4 base classes in the regular game, Sharpshooters were by far the most difficult to do a solo class run with. And I ended up needing to rely on using their pistols way more than I planned in order for that run to be successful. Now, do you want to know what the biggest difference between regular Sharpshooters and WotC Sharpshooters is? The WotC version doesn't have a pistol. Yeah, that secondary weapon that was essential to our success, these guys don't have that. Instead, they have the holo targeter. Yeah, their entire secondary weapon, if you can even call it that, is an ability that a regular grenadier gets reasonably early on. Except when the grenadier gets it, they can both holo target and inflict damage at the same time. So this entire device is actually worse than a single grenadier ability, because this thing does 0 damage. So it's not even really a weapon at all, and that means our only options to inflict damage in the early game is either a one-time use grenade or our sniper rifle. And of course, if we want to use the rifle, it uses 2 actions, so we can't move. Now in WotC itself, any class can equip a pistol as a utility item, so it's not as big of a problem, but we're not playing WotC. We're playing the vanilla game using WotC classes, and the mod author deliberately decided to not allow the use of pistols on these classes. So long story short, whenever we encounter a pod, we have 2 options, move or shoot. We cannot do both. And this is in a game that often requires you to move really fast and reposition quite rapidly. So hopefully with all this in mind, you're beginning to understand just how bad this is going to be. Now on the first mission here, we have no high ground, we have garbage cover, and our low-level sharpshooters have pretty miserable aim. So we lose a soldier and I decide to restart. It doesn't take too long to restart the first mission, and we want to keep as many troops alive as we can. I have a feeling we're going to need them. Now the second attempt is the complete opposite. We start on a rooftop, and that means we can use the height advantage to our favour, and our sharpshooters start with the steady ability. This will add a plus 20% chance to hit our first shot on the next turn. So when we use steady with all our soldiers and the height advantage from the roof, that gives our concealment Overwatch shots a 100% chance to hit. And since our rifles do a minimum of 4 damage, well, with 3 shots, we take out the entire first pod all at once. But even better than that, the second pod wanders out of the fog of war into our Overwatch ambush, so we can use our 4th shot to hit the captain for decent damage. And now we have our entire turn to attack them again. I focus on eliminating the basic troopers first, since we can guarantee the captain's demise with a grenade. It only has 3 HP left. But we don't even end up needing the grenade, we make the shot with our rifle. So absolute night and day here, and I think this highlights how reliant on the terrain we're going to be, at least in the early game. And because we're so reliant on the environment, of course the game throws a sewer level at us as the very next mission. And it's a neutralize the field commander mission, an objective that's going to force us to move rapidly across the map, a map in which there's lots of narrow spaces with lots of corridors and obstacles. Our squad side ability is going to be basically useless. So this is straight up the worst possible combination of a mission that we could face. And what do I need to say? The mission goes horribly, of course it does. How on earth could we do well with only sniper rifles in this setting? It's just not going to happen. Look at Bozo's chance to hit here, 20%. So I decide to use this grenade instead for obvious reasons. Then the rest of the team has about a 30% chance to hit the sectoid. But not to fear, we can increase that all the way to 40% with the use of our holo targeter. So yeah, this is really not good, but Tony actually makes the shot, so nice work. But the sectoid's still alive, and it hits back by mind controlling him. And he's the one with the flashbang, so we can't easily break the mind control. So we're having to use our second and final grenade to destroy the sectoid and get our boy Tony back. Now this is the first pod, by the way. Now here comes the second pod, and it also has a sectoid, and this one panics Tony. He's not having a good time on this mission. And in his panic, he opts to throw his flashbang into the middle of our squad. Now it doesn't actually affect us since he's on our team and the flashbang ignores friendly fire, but he has wasted the grenade, so that's not real good. And then look at this one. Bozo one-shots the sectoid with a 42% chance to hit. Absolutely dominant. And then we're forced to race forward, desperately trying to reach the commander's evac zone before he books it out of here. And if we run into a pod while we're rapidly moving forward like this, it's going to be pretty much certain death, I think. We'll have no way to defend ourselves. But sadly, we're too slow and the field commander does escape. But he has left behind a regular captain and a trooper for us to deal with, so thanks very much for that, I guess. Recrafted one-shots the trooper with a 50% shot, and I'm deliberately highlighting here how many low percentage shots that we're making. If XCOM was doing its usual thing and we were missing as much as we should be, this mission would be a squad wipe, no questions asked. The team is doing really well. The RNG of the mission and the map types, they were just against us on this one, and I don't think we ever had much of a chance. Now I did consider evacing after the captain escaped, but if we stick around we get to keep the corpses, so that was my main motivation. But realistically, the commander escaping is dreadful for us. It means we miss out on the mission reward of getting our first engineer, and unless we get lucky with a scanning reward on the strategic layer, which, spoiler, we don't, it's going to be a very long time before we have a chance to get another one. So after this mission, I start building the proving ground, and in retrospect, this was a terrible idea, and it is going to cause so many problems going forward. See, my plan was that I wanted to rush the proving ground to build spider suits. I figure the grappling hook should be really useful with our limited mobility, but I didn't think it through. Without that engineer, we're not going to be able to do any excavations, and that means we're not going to be able to get enough alloys to rush the armor research anyway. And without that research, we're not building any spider suits. So I really should have just went with the GTS once we lost that second mission, but like I said, I didn't think it through. I had a plan to get those spider suits, but once that plan wasn't going to materialize, I should have changed my thinking and built a different facility. The third mission is Lost Only, which we haven't had for a while in any of these videos, but I'm glad to see it here. Red Devil is the volunteer who we send out to get the VIP, and with the rest of the squad we camp on a second floor building, and we pick off whatever lost we can. We can do the usual thing of using grenades to detonate all the Lost's access points in the building so they can't reach us, and we have guaranteed safety for 3 out of 4 soldiers. That's pretty good, unless you're Red Devil, I guess, so she gets to get in and get the VIP. They start making their way back to the evac zone. Now while they're doing this, I decide to use the same high ground trick to keep the pair safe. There's 2 drain pipes here that they can climb up and cut off access for the Lost, except there's one problem. The Lost are already up there on the high ground waiting for us, so Red Devil finds herself face to face with a couple of the zombies. Now in some good news, I hadn't moved the VIP yet, so they can take a different route and hopefully be safe. But yeah, Red Devil, it's not looking good for her, and I was prepared to lose her here. but for whatever reason, the Lost don't attack. She's literally right next to them, and they just ignore her. I have no idea why they did this. I mean, I'm gonna take it, but it's weird. So we evac the VIP out, they're safe and sound, and Red Devil thankfully is able to join the rest of the squad in their fortress of safety. And then, just like we did with the vanilla Sharpshooters run, we camp here for an absolute eternity, and we mow down a whole heap of Lost. We need that XP, and since the Lost can do literally nothing to our squad, this is the best opportunity we're going to get to farm it. And sure enough, even though it takes a long time, we have a whole squad worth of promotions. As usual with the Long War 2 classes, our skill tree has 3 branches. The sniper tree focuses on sniper abilities that are similar to the vanilla class. Our first ability in this tree is Death from Above. Yeah, these guys get Death from Above at corporal rank. Now, it sounds really great, and it's definitely not bad, but when your only weapon is a sniper rifle, it's maybe not as useful as you might think. The spotter tree focuses on holo targeter abilities. It gives us rapid targeting. This not only gives us a 3-turn cooldown ability to holo target an enemy as a free action, that would be really nice in of itself, but it also makes regular holo targeting not end the unit's turn. So in theory, you could holo target twice, or you could holo target and then move. Gives us some nice options. Finally, we have the marksman tree, and it also focuses on sniper abilities. Not really sure what the difference between the top tree and the bottom tree are. This one gives us snapshot, and that lets us fire our sniper rifle after moving, but with penalties to our squad sight ability. Now, it's good we can get access to this early, since outside of a grappling hook or the hunter's rifle or a bonded action, this ability is the only option that we have to be able to both move and shoot in the same turn. Initially, my ideal scenario was 1 Death from Above Sharpshooter, 1 Rapid Holo Targeter, and 2 Snapshotters. So that's what I bring on the Retaliation mission, but this honestly was a mistake. The real strat is to just put Snapshot on everybody. Even if we retrain them later and we get rid of Snapshot, initially they all need that ability, and it would take me longer than it should have to realize this. But I will say something here. Giving a soldier Snapshot doesn't actually make them good. It's just giving them the absolute bare minimum of what any other class can do, even rookies. But see, even that's overselling it. Since Snapshot gives significant aim penalties in squad sight, if you're too far away, your chance to hit is going to drastically diminish. But you want to be far away because if you're in too close, the sniper rifle's natural aim penalties kick in and your chance to hit is going to drastically diminish. So no matter what you do, your chance to hit is probably going to suck. And even if all of that wasn't bad enough, Snapshot counts as an ability, not a regular shot. So if your soldier gets disoriented or something similar, they're not even going to be able to use Snapshot. Now, as far as the Chosen go on this mission, if we get anything other than the Hunter, my plan is to just evac out. The Warlock will drop exploding zombies on top of us that we're not going to be able to move away from and still attack. And the Assassin is the most mobile of the 3. She'll run in, smashes for big damage, probably one-shot somebody, and then Olympic sprint to a spot where we have no chance of hitting her back. And yeah, sure enough, it's the Assassin, so we are out of here. Now, we are able to save this one civilian on our way out, so it's not a total loss, I guess, that's something. But I've learned my lesson from the previous Sharpshooter runs. We need to be picking our spot with these guys. There is no point taking on a fight that we cannot win. But interestingly, Perry here has actually farmed enough XP from that Lost mission that he gets another promotion straight away. We have Damn Good Ground, which obviously pairs with Death from Above quite nicely. Then Phantom, which is nice since using the Holo Targeter doesn't break concealment. And finally, center mass, which adds +1 damage to our sniper rifles. More damage is always good to have. For the next guerrilla op, I bond Perry and Red Devil. Again, we need every advantage we can get, so yeah, I'm using bonds. Times are desperate indeed. But as soon as the mission loads in, I immediately see we are in trouble. The amount of ground that we need to cover is just insane. It's a huge distance, and our lack of mobility is going to be a massive handicap. So much so that when I see this pod of a priest and a stun lancer, I ignore it in favour of reaching the high ground on the highway above. If we want to get to the objective in time, we need to be moving quickly. So then we run into another stun lancer and sectoid, but with the high ground on our side, we can effectively ambush them. So that part's fine, but then that previous lancer and priest from the other pod, they join us up on the highway. We're flanked and running out of time to complete the hacking objective. Now, all the troops do have one use of the conceal ability thanks to the mission sitrep, so I send Stoll down to race to the objective while the other three are going to try and hold off the bad guys. Well, Perry misses a 58% shot on the Lancer, so not off to a good start. Crafter is able to hit them both with a flashbang, but the priest doesn't care. It just one-shot crits Crafter and sends him straight to the Shadow Realm. Now meanwhile, Stoll can't actually reach the objective in time, so sending her away from the team was a complete waste. All it did was leave the other troops with less firepower to defend themselves, and we're still gonna lose the mission anyway. Now Perry makes another attack and misses again, of course, and then the Lancer one-shots Red Devil. So this has been a complete disaster. Thankfully, Perry and Stoll can evac out, so we only lose half our squad instead of the whole squad, and that's pretty much the only positive I can say about this mission. And once again, with that distance we had to cover, we really had no chance here. The RNG is just not working for us on a lot of these missions. Now, one nice thing about having the proving ground is I was able to start building the frost bomb before this mission, and so it completes right after. And you'd think, well, that's a nice item to have, it lets us disable an enemy. Well, you're kind of right, but there's a problem. See, because we just lost that guerrilla op, the dark event triggers instantly. And what dark event was it, you ask? Sealed armor, of course, so that frost bomb is now totally useless against advent units. It's been a while since I've used that one, but I tell ya, I was really salty at this point in time. Everything is just going wrong at every turn, so the yelling meme fits. I'm glad to have it back. And just to put into perspective how disastrous things are right now, we have the first supply raid mission, and we're still fielding 4 soldiers since we have no GTS. One of them is a sergeant, one is a corporal, and the other 2 are squaddies. We've got tier 1 weapons and tier 1 armor, and we have 0 soldiers who can move and shoot in the same turn, since the only ones we had both got murked on that previous mission. This is an unmitigated disaster. And as you can probably guess, obviously the supply raid is going to suck. We have the lost sitrep, and there is so many of these things. And by the time we finish one group, another spawns in. And the real problem here, the thing that's making it difficult, is that they've kind of figured out a way to counter my high ground strat. They keep running onto the tiles directly underneath us, so we have no line of sight. Sure, they can't get to us, but we have no way of attacking them. The Lost are evolving, I guess, and that is a horrifying thought. Now, the obvious counterplay here would be to move someone onto the ground, but far enough away that the Lost can't reach them in one turn. Basically use them as bait to draw the Lost out into the open, and then the other soldiers can take them out. But the problem with doing that is that Advent are on this map too, and there is hardly any cover in this area. This terrain is a wasteland. So moving out risks activating more bad guys and leaving our soldier in a very vulnerable position. And so long story short, this mission ends up taking about half an hour. And it's not half an hour of exciting gameplay trying to figure out how to overcome a difficult situation. It's just mindlessly gunning down Lost, one after the other, again and again. It gets to the point where I end up just running Notch headlong into the final Advent pod. I'm expecting another Lost pod to spawn any moment now, so we just need to finish these guys off before any more zombies arrive. If we don't take drastic action, we're going to be stuck here forever. Now it is a risky strat, as the final stun lancer survives and takes a shot at Bozo, who's on a roof and not in cover. Now thankfully the shot misses, and we can then end the lancer on our turn before any more Lost arrive. And that makes 58 enemies slaughtered. This mission was so boring. However, there is an upside to it. It gives us a lieutenant. We have Precision Shot, which is a special attack that gives us a bonus to crit chance and crit damage. High Def Holo, which causes the holo targeter not just to improve our chance of hitting a target, but also increases our crit chance as well. And finally, Lone Wolf, which gives us plus 10 aim, plus 10 defense, and plus 0 critical chance. I'm guessing that's a typo and it's meant to be plus 10. And all of this only happens when there's no allied units within 7 tiles. And I honestly hate this ability. Generally you want to keep your squad fairly close together, so I doubt I'm going to use this very much. The other two do sound pretty good though. So we finally unlock the black market, and I instantly burn through almost all of our intel to purchase an engineer. Straight after that we get a council mission with an engineer as a reward. So if we can win here, having 2 of them would be awesome, and that will allow us to start catching up on the facilities we haven't been able to build up until now, which is everything except for the proving ground. Without engineers, you can only get 1 facility. That's all we've had up until this point. So yeah, winning here, that would be nice. But of course, there's a problem with that. This is one of those missions where we cannot evac out until enough turns pass. And I'm pretty sure these types of missions exclusively take place on sewer maps. And remembering how the previous sewer mission went, I'm expecting that anyone we send on this mission is likely not coming back. So I pick the 4 most useless non-rookie troops we have in the barracks. I'd obviously love to use the rookies, but this is a solo class run, so we can't do that. And when I say useless, I'm sending my own soldier Drifter as part of this group, so please don't anyone be offended. It's just about strategy. The basic way I select troops in the early game is based on 2 things: intelligence and willpower. The most intelligent troops with the highest will, those are the ones I try to make the main cast because they're probably going to be the most useful. All the other stats for soldiers of the same class are equal, so those 2 things are the difference makers. And as our troops level up and I get an idea of what hidden abilities they have, that also affects who makes it onto the A team and who doesn't. So with these 4, I've just chosen the lowest leveled soldiers with the lowest intelligence and lowest will. Yeah, the lowest everything pretty much. They're the most disposable right now, and having a second engineer is going to give us more value than any of these troops at this point in time. And I know it's harsh, but we're playing to win. So of course the $1 million question becomes, how does the mission go? Now the first pod is fine since we can overwatch from concealment and destroy them. It's the second pod where things start going wrong. And it's interesting, there's usually mechs on this mission, but not so this time. It's just sectoids, purifiers, and a trooper. I'm not sure why the lack of mechs is happening. Maybe the game feels sorry for me since I'm fielding a team of squaddies in April. I don't know, but I'm gonna go with it. Anyway, you'll see it doesn't actually end up mattering. Malorian is in half cover, but the sectoid still one-shots him with a crit. I mean, technically he's bleeding out, so it's maybe not a one-shot, but the evac isn't going to spawn until after the turn timer has expired and he is sent to the Shadow Realm. And we have no medikit since Red Devil had it when she got Shadow Realmed a few missions ago, and we're too poor to buy a second one. We cannot afford a medikit. So certainly a less impressive effort from Malorian in this run than the previous. But hey, they can't all be winners, right? That's just the start though. The sectoid raises a zombie and Worst Nightmare here takes an 86% shot that of course she completely misses. And I gotta tell you, she's my worst nightmare. Now Sawyer can hit it, but it survives on 1 HP, so Drifter needs to make a 60% shot on this zombie to finish it off, otherwise it's probably gonna take him out next turn. And do I even need to say anything? Of course he misses. It's Drifter as a sharpshooter. It's never gonna end well. And I'll be honest, as Drifter got his face bitten off by this zombie, I wasn't even mad. I was just laughing. We are witnessing an absolute clown show here. Nightmare finally hits the zombie, and then I start running to the VIP with Sawyer, at least until the sectoid panics him. So on our next turn, Nightmare can't attack since she has to reload her gun. And of course she doesn't have Snapshot yet, she's too low level. So that's our entire turn. We reload and then use Steady. Now the sectoid, on its turn, one-shots Nightmare through full cover and she's gone. So then there was one. I activate the VIP with Sawyer and that's going to call in Advent reinforcements. But it will also start ticking down the turns before we can evac. So I run the VIP as far away as I can. And I imagine he's just thinking like, please Lord, just get me away from these morons who are sent here to rescue me. They're definitely going to get me killed. And he's probably right. Now this is basically a wait out the clock situation. If Advent reaches us before we can evac, we probably lose the mission. Otherwise we might have a chance. Now Advent do in fact reach us, but the VIP is hunkering down and he's able to avoid every attack sent his way. This VIP is probably the most competent soldier on this mission. Now Sawyer, meanwhile, things don't go quite as well for him. He gets panicked by a sectoid, and in his panic, he decides running towards the enemies is the smartest move. But not only that, because he's moved he can't shoot with his gun. That means the only attack he has is his grenade. So he immediately rips it out and throws it right at himself. This dude's crowning achievement, blowing himself sky high. And look at this, he actually lives. The guy can't even Minecraft himself properly. And yeah, I was in hysterics here. What a bunch of turkeys we have sent on this mission. But to be fair, as much shade as I've thrown at these guys, they have actually fulfilled their role. The evac zone is here, and our VIP makes it to safety. So they actually did win the mission. It just took all their lives to do it. So thank you for your service, Clown Squad. We couldn't have done it without you. And having this engineer is going to be really good for us. With 2 of them now, we can finally get the GTS. We've picked up a bunch of rookies from scanning rewards, so we can start training them up, start replenishing our barracks. With all the losses we've taken, that's something that we really need to do. Additionally, we can get the squad size 1 upgrade. So that means we can bring 5 useless troops into the field instead of only 4. Yeah, should be a real game changer, I'm sure. We have some guerrilla ops, and our favourite sitrep of Savage has returned. Now, berserkers shouldn't be spawning yet. That means this mission should be crawling with faceless. A mean beacon or 2 could go a long way with helping out our sharpshooters, so we're definitely deploying on this one. Now, I need to tell you something here that may be controversial. You'll see me moving really slowly, and we're heading straight for the nearby roof. Now, I have 0 interest in stopping the dark event. It's the one that causes a chance of ambush on all covert ops. And I've been meaning to say this for a while, but I just keep forgetting. Since the no guns run, I've actually been using a mod that completely disables ambush missions. So this dark event, even if it triggers, I don't think it's actually going to do anything. Now look, ambush missions, they suck. I've played dozens, if not over 100 of them. They're really boring. So if you want to say I'm a cheater and that all of my runs in this game from now until the end of time are invalid, that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. but for me, ambush missions are never going to cost me a run. They're just an annoyance. And at the end of the day, life is just too short to waste on things you hate doing. Especially in this case when it's not even going to add any value to the content. So I think disabling them is fine, and that's what I'm going to do. Probably forever. But anyway, the point is, the dark event triggering does not matter. As long as we wipe out all the bad guys, we'll still get those precious faceless corpses. And that's the main reason we're here. We can afford to lose the mission, that's not the key priority. Now during my ranting, a Lancer and Faceless have snuck up on us, and since we can't reposition, overwatching from concealment is usually our best bet. The enemies are out of cover when we overwatch, and since we can't move to get a flanking shot, we might as well fire away while we can. Once that pod activates, we're probably going to be shooting through cover, at least for the Stun Lancer. Now the problem with Overwatch is that we cannot control who our soldiers decide to shoot at. Now here, I'd much rather they target the Lancer over the Faceless. The Faceless can't use cover, so if it survives to the next turn, it's not a big deal. We can easily eliminate it. Our chance to hit it isn't really going to go down. And with that in mind, of course our soldiers target the Faceless over the Stun Lancer. Why wouldn't they? Notch has Phantom by now, so he's still concealed, but the problem is the Lancer is right in front of him. He's in
close range.
And with our Sharpshooters, we don't want to be in
close range.
In fact,
close range
is pretty much a death sentence. Look at our chance to hit here, 31%. We want to be as far from
close range
as we can possibly be. Alright, that's probably the only chance in this whole run I'm going to get to use that meme, so I figured I'd make the most of it. I'll stop now. I'm sorry. Anyway, here's why rapid targeting is actually pretty good. Notch can holo target this Lancer as a free action and then still shoot, even though he doesn't have snapshot. Now it's not that useful in this situation since his chance to hit only goes up to 41%, but in other scenarios there is potential that this could be a good thing to have. Notch, however, proves he belongs on the A team and he smokes that Lancer with that low percentage shot. And I'm glad, because we were probably going to lose a soldier if he didn't. So Notch keeps our hopes of having some meme beacons alive. Good man. Maybe not for that long though, since the assassin spawns in. This is honestly terrible. I didn't mention her strengths before, but she has kinetic plating and shadow step. And remember what I was just saying about Overwatch often being our best bet? Yeah, it's useless against her. Her weakness is brittle, which is absolutely useless to us. So this leaves us in a bind. We have no real way of fighting her, but we desperately want to win this mission. We need to defeat these enemies. So I take a big risk here. Notch gets dazed by a sneak attack, and then the assassin breaks line of sight by hiding down in this ditch. And I decide we're going to leave Notch to his fate. I know, I was just singing his praises, but even if he gets captured, that's better than missing out on meme beacons. So the assassin charges him on her next turn, but she thankfully only goes for an interrogation. Now, I know for the people who've been around for a while, this may be feeling familiar. Isn't this pretty much exactly what happened to DJ in the original Sharpshooters run? And that turned out very badly indeed. However, the thing we have working in our favour this time around is that we actually picked up the resistance order that reduces chosen knowledge increases by 33%. We actually rolled it straight away, and it was the first resistance order that I made active. I figured progress was going to be slow in this campaign, so anything we can do to slow down the chosen from levelling up, that's a positive. So I'm hoping that letting the assassin power up like this doesn't cost us the entire run, but we're not going to know that either way until much later on. For now, we've gotten rid of the assassin, she's warped out after getting her intel, and we're left with 3 faceless moving in. We have the high ground, they can't use cover, this one is like fish in a barrel. We mop the floor with these things. And pretty much straight away we have a retaliation mission, and you know how this one is going to go. We're up against mutons while we're still fielding tier 1 weapons and armor, so it's a quick evac. Sorry resistance folk, you guys are on your own. We pick up another useful resistance order, the one that increases excavation speed by 50%. So I've been focusing on that with our engineers, just trying to get as many places excavated as we can, and this is giving us supplies and materials we can use for things like plated armor, a mine beacon, and even a spider suit. So come the next guerrilla op, we have our new toys at our disposal, and our frost bomb will actually work these days. That dark event is no longer active, so we've gotten a pretty good power spike here. Unfortunately, it is another highway level, and we end up having the exact same problem as last time. Once the bad guys arrive up on the highway with us, we don't really have an effective way to deal with them. I had been running in with Ato to hack the objective, but she ends up getting surrounded by multiple pods. Now she does get mind controlled, but luckily for us, being a LW2 Sharpshooter, she's too useless and low level to be able to do much to us. Checkmate Advent. It doesn't matter if you mind control our troops when our troops completely suck. Now we use the mine beacon to lure the Viper and Stun Lancer over to the truck, which we then promptly blow up with grenades. And this strategy honestly worked way better than I expected it to. Unconventional, but if it gets rid of him, that's what we're going to do. Now Tony has the grappling hook from the spider suit, so I run him out trying to get a grenade on the sectoid that's using mind control. It took some damage from another exploding truck earlier, so one grenade will finish it off. But the Stun Lancer comes in and disorients us with the melee attack. This run is just so annoying. Now luckily Bozo can snipe the sectoid from the highway, so Ato is back on our side. She is, however, completely surrounded by enemies, to the point that I don't even bother moving her to cover. They're just going to flank her or panic her or disorient her anyway, so I just leave her where Advent had placed her, and I start shooting. And then it's Advent's turn once again. The Stun Lancer knocks out Bozo, and as far as the objective that we were meant to hack, that ship has sailed, or been blown into pieces and sent to the bottom of the ocean in this particular case. Anyway, we end up in this really weird scenario where Ato is firing at the Lancer right next to Duncakes up on the highway, and meanwhile Duncakes is firing at the Trooper down below right next to Ato. They're covering each other from opposite sides of the map, since their chance to hit the enemy is actually better at a longer distance. So that's certainly something you don't see every day in XCOM. And as annoying as this run is, it's certainly been interesting. Now Ato takes a critical hit from the remaining captain, but she hangs on for dear life. Duncake still has the frost bomb, so he can disable the captain. That's going to give us a turn to move into a better position to finish the captain off. And that's exactly what happens when this gentleman, known as Jom Brickford, one-shots that captain with a critical flank. And I have to say, just having a flanking shot in this run, it happens so rarely. I was so happy to see it. I'm getting excited about such basic things. So anyway, the dark event is going to trigger, but at least everyone is alive, even Bozo. Meanwhile, Perry has reached captain rank thanks to a covert op promotion. We have long watch, which is the same as vanilla. Independent tracking, which increases the length of holo targeting by 1 turn, and low profile, which makes half cover count as full cover. So all pretty good abilities here, but I don't think any of them are going to be game changing. Then we have this supply raid mission, and I don't want to talk about the whole thing because it took about an hour to beat, and we lose pyrotechnic here to a random trooper, just a pod of 1 trooper and 1 sectoid. I took so many shots at these 2 enemies and all of them just kept missing. And so eventually the bad guys, even though their aim sucks as well, after enough shots one of them is eventually gonna hit. And any maps like this one where we have large structures, they're pretty dreadful for our sharpshooters. Not only because there's plenty of ways for Advent to break line of sight with our highly immobile troops, It's also because our sniper rifles actually drop off in accuracy if we get too close to the target. So we need to keep a distance, but with these big structures in the way, that makes it very hard to flank or even just get a decent shot. So we're often just left to take a fairly low percentage shot and just hope for the best. So there's not really any clever strategies to be used in these scenarios, we're just praying that RNG doesn't mess us up. And I mean, we're playing XCOM, so of course the RNG is going to mess us up. And not only is the RNG a problem, the captain here just completely ignores our mimic beacon. So that's great, I'm so happy we risked so much to get this thing. But somehow, despite the nonsense and the gargantuan playtime, we do persevere and we pull out the win. A council mission is up next and we finally have magnetic sniper rifles by this stage. So you probably think this is going to be a game changer, right? It's not. We get decimated. Once again we have a captain ignoring our mimic beacon. He instead lands a one-shot crit on Ato. Yeah, 8 HP gone in a single hit from a captain. But it gets even better. See, Ato was wearing a spider suit. We've only been able to make 2 of them since we've only obtained 2 Elerium cores in the whole run. But this sectoid raises Ato as a zombie. Now we can finish the sectoid, so that's okay. The problem here is that once a deceased soldier has been zombified, apparently you can no longer pick up their corpse, even after you finish off the zombie. So we can't carry Ato out of here and recover our spider suit. It's just gone forever. Half the Elerium cores we've gathered this run have just been wasted, but the pain isn't over just yet. The assassin joins us straight after this. She summons in some troopers and one of them sends Netta to the Shadow Realm. And as we try to take that trooper down, look at our chance to hit. Most soldiers, it's in the low 40% range, and that's after this trooper has been holo-targeted. Our aim is just way too bad for a class that is so horribly immobile. But you know what? Even when the chance to hit is 80%, Tony here still misses. So maybe the percentage doesn't matter after all. And on top of our sharpshooters being legally blind, this terrain is terrible to deal with the assassin. There's so much verticality that she can exploit and leaves us completely helpless. And lots of full cover for her to hide behind. There's simply no way for our sharpshooters to be able to take her on, especially since she has kinetic plating. So if we do try to fight here and we miss one of those low percentage shots, which of course we're going to, she's going to gain shield points. We're actually going to make her more powerful. I mean, here's Tony missing a 77% shot. At least he's consistent, if nothing else, I guess. Consistently terrible. So anyway, this one turns into a bit of a mismatch. Why did we have to start with the assassin? Just why? Once again, I decide to just let her grab one of our troops. She'll teleport out after she does this. That's the only way we're going to get rid of her. Otherwise, she's just going to slowly pick off the whole team, gradually draining away their HP. And I think this is one of those times for past Drifter to take it from here. Damn, that was a cool visual. Was that our whole team she just dazed? So she just gets another turn instant. No, don't take the meme beacon, bro. She's taking the meme beacon. Alright, she's only extracting knowledge. She's not kidnapping him. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, that was best case scenario. Oh my god. I mean, at least we didn't lose our one and only mimic beacon, I guess. It could have been worse. Unlike Ato, we're thankfully able to grab Netta's corpse. She has the frost bomb, so this is going to allow us to recover it. We're able to grab the VIP, and we don't actually encounter any more bad guys on the way out. Well, there are some reinforcements that drop in right at the end, but by the time they get there, we're so close to the evac, we can just run straight past them. And this one was about a 40-minute mission. So many missions this run are just so painful, and they take so long. There's no respite to be found. Given how broke we are on the supply front, and the fact the assassin keeps destroying us, I decide to expand out on the strategic layer, and we quickly encounter the Warlock. Now, I'm not expecting this guy is going to be easy to deal with, not at all, but I also don't think he's going to be quite as bad as the Assassin. So having some different regions to take missions in could work to our favour, at least that's what I'm hoping. His strengths are Soul Stealer, Watchful, and Prelate. His weakness is Groundling, and these honestly aren't too bad for us. The next round of Guerrilla Ops is up, and our roster is way too depleted to be able to win this one. And normally I'd buy some recruits to get more soldiers, but like I said, supplies are tight, we can't afford to do that right now. It's also worth mentioning that the Gone to Ground Dark event has activated, so we can't even sell stuff at the black market to get more supplies. The game is just walling me at every turn. Like any option I could use to actually gain an advantage, the game seems to find a way to take it away from me. So what do we do in this situation? Like, we're not going to win any of these guerrilla ops. So I think about it for a bit, and one of the dark events is Alien Infiltrator. And having Faceless on missions means more chances for us to gain Mimic Beacons. So I deploy a single soldier and we use the galactic-brained 4D strategy of evacing out. Straight away. Like I said, we weren't going to win anyway with the amount of injured and tired soldiers we have, so if a dark event is going to activate, I figure it might as well be one that potentially has an upside for us. So a bit of an unusual strategy here, we'll see how it plays out. Then we have a retaliation mission, and the Warlock is gonna be on this one. However, before he even gets here, we already have big problems on our hands. On the very first turn, we immediately uncover a Berserker and Purifier. So I plant the Mimic Beacon down and move the troops into firing position so we can take out the bad guys next turn. Now, it's great we have a Mimic Beacon to do this, but using it on the very first turn of the mission certainly isn't ideal. The other thing I do is block the ladder leading up the building. So even though we can't take out the Berserker, it just has way too much HP for us to deal with right now, we can force it to take the long way around to reach us. That's going to buy us a little bit more time. Of course, Berserkers have pretty high mobility, so even though it can't attack us, it can still reach our position and it's right up in our face. And having the Berserker this close, that's going to reduce our chance to hit it, so this could be bad, but I have a plan. Brickford here has an advanced stock, and the Berserker is down to 2 HP, so even if we miss the shot, we can still take it down. So with this in mind, I'm not too worried about it, and I decide to focus on eliminating the spectral zombie that has spawned in instead. And then Duncakes is bonded with Brickford, so he can give him an extra action. Brickford has Snapshot, so he can mop up the Berserker, or at least he would be able to, if not for the fact that he's out of ammo. So that's a setback, but it's still not a disaster. We do have an alternative. We can use a grenade to finish the Berserker off that way. But as I click down on the mouse button, it causes the mouse to move very slightly and the grenade goes off to the side. So yeah, that's what we call a misclick. I'm reloading. Now, I didn't play the turn in the exact same order, mainly because I couldn't remember the exact order. But we do things more or less the same, and we take all the bad guys down. That's the main thing. Now, on this map, the building we spawned on seems to have the highest point in the surrounding area. So thankfully, the terrain is once again working to our advantage. It's been a little while since that was the case. Now, in addition, Duncakes has Phantom. He's one of our designated holo-targeters, though I do end up retraining him later on in the run. But for right now, since he's in concealment, he can move forward to scout ahead. This allows the rest of the team to utilise Squad Sight in taking shots at Advent from beyond line of sight. And being able to activate a Berserker from such long range, it really works to our favour. I mean, this thing's a melee unit after all, so we're raining destruction down on this thing and there's not much it can do to stop us, it's just too far away. Then we have an 89% shot on the Stun Lancer, but we get a dodge so it survives on 1 HP. That's obnoxious. What's even more obnoxious is the Berserker blows Duncake's concealment, so our newfound strategy is out the window immediately. Oh yeah, and a second pod has activated. Oh, and the Warlock surrounds us with zombies at point blank range. So what are we gonna do? Well, I target the zombies first, and the one that ruptures actually damages the second one this time. That didn't happen in the last video, so I don't know what's going on. It could just be the usual XCOM jank, but I'm not sure. Anyway, Brickford fires at the Berserker and his hair trigger activates. I think it was an advanced hair trigger, so that's a 10% chance. And I don't usually like hair triggers and repeaters too much since they are RNG based. I prefer weapon attachments that give us guaranteed benefits. But in this run, where our options are as limited as they are, I'm going to take any weapon mod we can get. Relying on that 10% hair trigger is actually one of the best bets we have right now. Yeah, times are dark. Now that 1 HP Lancer, it's still alive and it continues attacking civilians, and the captain has also survived. It aims at Duncakes, and I was afraid we were going to get yet another one-shot crit, but thankfully the captain misses. And I actually decide here the best thing to do is to skulljack this thing with Duncakes. It's a one-shot attack, so we can easily get rid of the captain, and I think the Codex is going to be a lot less dangerous. So sure enough, here comes the Codex, and Perry takes a 90% shot. He misses. So that's a dodge on an 89% and now a miss on a 90%. And this guy is our highest ranked soldier too. No wonder we're struggling so much. Thankfully Ulrich can do much better damage with a much lower chance shot, and I think she was in my original Rangers only run, so it's cool to see her back. Meanwhile, Big Money wipes out the clone with a 52% shot. So the RNG is really up and down here. We're missing lots of easy shots, but then we're making quite a few tougher ones. So I guess it all balances out? I don't know. I start spreading out the remaining troops in preparation for a psionic bomb. I'm not thinking we're going to be able to take out this Codex this turn. That is, until I remember something really important. You see that clone there? It only has 2 HP. And 2 is a very important number for us. Oh wait, he's got snapshot. He's got a... Bros! He has the stock! He has the stock! Bro, he has the stock! You take that 0% chance, buddy! You do it! You make us all proud, son! Now, Duncakes does take a hit from the Lancer, and it is a close call. He's left on 1 HP, but thankfully he's alright. We can cover him on the next turn and take that Lancer out. And I honestly think the bigger story here is John Brickford. This guy seemingly excels at long range, and he's actually competent at his job. So I think it's confirmed. We found Bradford's good twin, which means yes, Bradford was the evil twin all along. I gotta say, I'm not surprised. As we advance, the Warlock seems to disappear for a bit. He's not spawning any zombies on us, and that's really weird. Now, I was trying to reach this building so we could grab some high ground to take him on, but just before we get there, the Scarlet Man resurfaces. And the battle that takes place here is just absurd, even by XCOM standards. So I end up using our Frost Bomb on a spectral zombie because we just have no other way to deal with it. Yeah, a Frost Bomb on a spectral zombie. And there's also a Faceless spawning in too, so that's just great. And then the Warlock mind scorches 2 soldiers at once, but truth be told, with how clustered together they were, I'm just thankful he didn't land it on all 4 of the soldiers. I guess he hasn't leveled up enough to do that just yet. Anyway, Big Money misses an 82% shot on the Faceless, then Notch takes a 61% shot and misses, then Brickford misses with an 88% shot. And none of these are accounting for hidden aim buffs either, so their chance to hit is actually even higher. I might have sang Brickford's praises a little bit too early. Now, Ulrich can flashbang the big slimy boy to lower its accuracy, but to no avail. It still hits Notch. Thankfully he's alive, at least for now. And then check this out. Perry actually resists the Warlock's mind control. I don't remember that ever happening before. I didn't even think it was possible. So good work, Perry. We blow up the Warlock to shred him and to send him to ground level, and then Perry can utilise Groundling as well as his damn good ground ability. This allows him the opportunity to miss a 92% shot. Yeah, that's a thing that just happened. And I gotta tell you, I was getting really frustrated in this mission. We were making some difficult shots earlier in the mission, but in this engagement, we're just missing everything. So by now the Warlock has summoned a priest and that mind controls Ulrich, but again, when our soldiers are this bad, it's not like they're going to be much help to Advent anyway. But then Big Money here makes the 50%, and this is really weird. She can make multiple 50% shots, but she can't make the 80%. And I know it's random, that's how RNG works. It's just so crazy in this mission. The hits and misses just seem so unlikely. It boggles the mind. So finally the Warlock is down to 6 HP, including his armor, and at this stage that's a guaranteed one shot. Even Perry can't mess this one up. Skullet Boy is ours for the taking. Wait, no, I spoke too soon. Perry's out of ammo, so he can mess it up. This wouldn't be happening if he had made that 92% shot. I'm just putting that out there. Then Brickford lands a 66% on a faceless, and his hair trigger activates. I was really excited about this until I realised he's also out of ammo, so he can't make a second attack. He can still run away at least to put some distance between him and the faceless, so I guess that's good, but at the same time it's not really that good. Duncase gets hit by the faceless and he's bleeding out. If we can't finish these enemies quickly, Duncase is going to the Shadow Realm. So let's get this thing done. Perry has a 100% on the Warlock now, and he's got a full clip. We can finally take that Warlock out. And then we just want to hit the faceless with whatever we can. The problem is, just about the whole squad besides Perry is out of ammo. And this is another reason you want Snapshot on everyone. They can reload and still shoot in the same turn. But for right now, Ulrich's the only one who can take a shot, and of course she misses. She does take a hit, but she's on full HP, so she survives okay. And then, finally, Perry ends this faceless. This thing seems to have stuck around forever. But we've finally gotten rid of it, won the mission, Duncakes is still alive. But once it's all said and done, this mission took 50 minutes of real time. And just to put this into perspective for you, excluding that guerrilla op that we evac'd out of on the very first turn, the other last 3 missions have taken almost 3 hours combined. Now normally I try to stream for 3 hours, but most of these ones ended up being way longer because we just weren't making any progress. Anyway, the good news is with that retaliation mission done, Perry has reached major rank. We have Deadeye, which is the same as vanilla, Vital Point Targeting, which makes any enemies your holo target take additional damage, and Aggression, which gives us a plus 5% critical chance for each enemy we can see. Now I'm not sure if this includes enemies that have been spotted by squad sight. If it does, this could potentially be quite a useful skill. Now the next mission isn't quite as bad as the last ones have been, but it still takes almost half an hour. The good news is by now we've had enough soldiers survive for long enough that they're at a bit of a higher level. And when I say higher level, I mean they're sergeants instead of squaddies. And we're facing Archons by this stage. So it's still absolutely horrible, but at least most of the team has Snapshot, so they can reposition and shoot in the same turn. And yeah, we're taking that as a luxury at this point. So after that, it's a guerrilla op, and our boy Tony is up to his old tricks. He misses a 91% shot, and shortly after that, he misses a 93%. Now at this point, Twitch chat and I was starting to question whether he was some kind of inside man for Advent. Like I would say that no one can suck this much by accident, but then I remember Leeson and Perry exist, so maybe they can. I don't know. But I'm telling you, the RNG is just so infuriating. We have so few options with these guys. Most of the time, it's just standing there, shooting and hoping for the best. And when these easy shots miss so often, it really leaves us with nowhere to go. Now thankfully we do still pull out the victory on this one. Then we've got another council mission and the Lost are going to be present this time. So my plan is to leave Advent and the Lost to fight it out amongst themselves while we stay in concealment. Advent eventually takes out all of the zombies, and this is what I'm waiting for. See, once the Lost are all gone and Advent doesn't have anyone to fight, but their pods have been activated, the AI usually bugs out and all the enemies cluster together. And once they do this, we can bombard them with grenades or a frost bomb or whatever we want, really. And speaking of grenades, I should point out here, we're still using frag grenades. We collected a Muton corpse quite a while back, so we should have plasma grenades by now. The issue is that to build them in the Proving Ground, you need an Elerium core. And we've still only picked up 2 this entire campaign. Yeah, those 2 spider suits we built, they're the only Elerium cores we found. Now that is in part due to the fact that collecting loot is really difficult for our fairly slow sharpshooters, but that's not the full story. It's also just awful RNG. Like, there have been times where we have been able to grab the loot from an enemy, but every single time it's just a weapon mod. And that's fine, but weapon mods really are not what I need right now. So anyway, back to the mission. At first I'm thinking the Advent boys are indeed going to cluster, as I expect, but then this Muton just says, nah, stuff this, and he yellow dashes straight at us as if he knows exactly where we are, even though we're concealed. And of course, he was the first of the bad guys to move, so the rest of the aliens, which is 2 pods worth, they all get to attack us. The Viper poisons half the squad, the Archon flanks us, a Sectoid panics Brickford, and here I was worried he was going to grenade our squad, but thankfully he just hunkers down. So that's at least one thing that went right this turn. But yeah, overall, this is terrible. Not only are the bad guys in super close, reducing our aim, but poison also reduces our aim even further. So we're flanked, there's loads of bad guys active, and we're going to be able to hit basically nothing with our guns. This is a disaster. And I gotta tell you, at this point I'm thinking a squad wipe is unavoidable. I don't know what we're going to do here. The only option I can really see is Chan has a grappling hook, so she can find some high ground and increase her chance of hitting the bad guys that way. But of course it doesn't help, she still misses. Now we can use the meme beacon to delay the inevitable attack for a single turn. It's going to buy us a little bit of time, but not very much. It gets taken down in 2 hits, and that leaves another 4 enemies to attack us. So this isn't looking great, but there is one interesting thing to note. See, 1 turn may not sound like much, but here it actually makes a gigantic difference. Because that 1 turn results in a new Lost spawn coming in, and they absolutely flood the battlefield. Now yes, these things are going to attack us, so that part's not good, but we're going to focus on eliminating the ones that are close to our troops. And conversely, we're going to make sure to leave the ones that are closer to the aliens alive. This is going to give Advent some juicy targets besides us. Now that Muton that blew our concealment, it's the thing I'm most worried about, so I'm glad we can take it down. We're able to freeze the Archon with the Frost Bomb, and this in turn brings in even more Lost, and even better, they're actually engaging the aliens. They don't always do that, but they are cooperating this time, which is really good. And then on our next turn, I do something that might be a bit questionable. See, this is one of those missions where there's extra soldiers on the battlefield. Potential recruits if we can get them out alive. Now, often on these solo class runs, I will ignore these extra soldiers. They're not the right class, so we obviously can't use them in the run. But there have been runs where I have activated them. Usually I do it if it's safe to do so, and we just evac them out. They don't engage in any combat, and once we're back at the barracks, we dismiss them immediately. Now, why do I do this? Well, I don't know, it just feels like the right thing to do. There's no point leaving them out on the battlefield if we can get them home safely instead. It doesn't really cost us anything, so we might as well. Anyway, the point is, on this occasion, I run Duncakes in the vicinity of Kaz, who is a technical. Now, technicals are a really fun class, and I am looking forward to doing a run with them, but obviously we're not doing that today. And even though I don't do anything with Kaz, I literally just leave him standing there, now that he's activated, enemies may choose to target him rather than our troops. So he's kind of like a living mimic beacon, a meat shield in the truest sense of the word. A man who is going to be left standing in that exact spot until his final breath. Now, is this breaking the rules? Technically, no. The rule is that we can only use sharpshooters in combat, and that's what I'm doing. I have not used a single action with Kaz. All we did was walk near him with one of our sharpshooters, and that's it. We're not breaking any rules. However, is it within the spirit of the rules? And honestly, maybe it's not. We are deliberately using him as a decoy after all. We're purposely getting him involved in the battle. But here's the thing. The game placed him in that position, not me, and running past him probably would have activated him anyway, even if I wasn't planning to. So I think this one is fair game, but I'm not going to make a habit of doing it. We were just really desperate here, and I needed any advantage I can get, so I was happy to walk the line of the rules on this one. I've suffered too much nonsense this run to have to redo it. This campaign right here will be a success, and I will not accept any other outcome. All those soldiers who have died to one-shot crits and captains ignoring mimic beacons, they will be avenged, and that's that. I'm not having it any other way. And through all of this, we do actually survive. At least for now, the last of the aliens are dealt with. And that means we can start being a lot more mobile. Rushing to high ground is ideal now that we don't have to worry about staying in cover. We want to get away from the Lost. However, I'm not being totally reckless with our movements, as I suspect there's still another Advent pod out there somewhere. And sure enough, we soon come across them. And here's another cool thing about Brickford's hair trigger. It can still proc even on a miss. And when it does, even if he misses both shots like he does here, that's still 4 guaranteed damage with his stock. And off an 11% chance to hit like we had this turn, I'm very happy with 4 damage. That's actually really good. However, it's obviously not enough to finish the Spectre, and things are looking a little bit dodgy when Ulrich gets cloned, and then the Spectre retreats behind a building, blocking line of sight for most of the squad. Now I said most, not all. Tony can get the flank, but do you really expect this guy to make a 78% shot? No, of course not. Chan, on the other hand, makes a huge shot and eradicates the clone. So Ulrich is back, and that means she can get the flank on the Spectre, and she can miss a 75% shot. Man, this run is wild. Now, thankfully, Brickford can once again save the day. He doesn't have line of sight on the Spectre, but he can just get a grenade over there to finish it off. He bounces it off the roof of the structure, and that Spectre is gone. So we're pretty much safe at this point, apart from more Lost spawns. We take the time to save the extra Trooper Storm here, just because we can. I mean, it's the least we can do, seeing as his buddy Kaz just got eaten by zombies on our behalf. Anyway, we actually pull out the victory, and given how things started off, I cannot believe that. But once again, this is a 45-minute mission. This run is such a grind. Even when we win, it's such a difficult slog to get there. Now, I did mention the avatar progress before, and it's finally filled up. Now, we are going to get a council drop in a few days, so I decide just to hold off on dealing with the counter. The covert ops will refresh, and maybe there will be one that will allow us to reduce the avatar progress that way. That's always the safest way to do it. But sadly, this is not the case. We don't get any useful covert ops, and actually most of the covert ops have kind of sucked this run. It's just another way we're getting bad RNG. However, the council drop does give us some good news. We have this new resistance order we can use. Tactical Analysis. And I'm thinking this could be a game changer. And I'm going to show you why. Right now, in fact. See, our only other option is to hit this alien facility, and it's housing an alien ruler. Now I try to avoid the rulers as much as possible since they're cheap and obnoxious and they're going to inflict a lot of damage on us, and I just don't like fighting them. But in this scenario, we're out of options. It's either hit this facility or lose the run. However, we do have some good news. The black market has returned, so we can sell just enough goods to build a second mimic beacon. We actually have quite a few faceless corpses, but not enough supplies to build the beacons. Yeah, just think about that. Supplies are a rarer commodity than faceless corpses. Now that is a very unusual, and to be honest, a pretty miserable position to be in, but that's where we find ourselves. Anyway, facility time. So we have 2 phantom sharpshooters, and these guys are clutch. They can spot the enemy pod from concealment, and then our other snipers from a great distance can use squad sight to activate the pod. Now I've already mentioned this strat, why am I talking about it again? And the reason is tactical analysis. This ability causes any enemies that activate on our turn to only have a single action point on their next turn. And this strat proves crippling to Advent. We can activate them from beyond line of sight, and as long as we're far enough away, it's impossible for Advent to attack us on their turn. They can either move or attack, not both, since they only have one action, but because they can't see us, they're obviously going to be forced to move. Once they do that, we then have an entire second turn that we can target them to take them out. And the thing I really love about this is we're essentially doing to Advent what the early game did to us, forcing them to choose between moving and attacking. And as long as we place our phantom sharpshooters well, they're going to remain concealed. We can abuse this strat as much as we want. And needless to say, it works very well, and we are demolishing the pods that we're encountering. So I send our phantom bros out further to find the ruler. My plan is to lead the ruler back towards the sharpshooters on this outpost building, where we'll then proceed to overwatch it into the next dimension. But everything hits the fan real fast when the Berserker Queen just comes strutting out directly between our scouts and the shooters. She activates right in front of the shooters, and we're in for a world of pain. She's way closer than what we want. Now the phantom sharpshooters, they do actually have squad sight as well. All of our sharpshooters get that, so I try attacking with them. Now my understanding was if an action takes place from beyond the ruler's line of sight, they don't get a reaction turn. This was a huge nerf versus how they originally worked when the DLC first released. Back then it didn't matter if they could see you or not, they always got a reaction turn. But this nerf, I have exploited this weakness in some videos in the past. But not this time, it doesn't work here. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe because it's a direct attack, they always get to respond to that? I don't know. But regardless, it ends up in big money taking a hit, and she does get stunned. Thankfully, it's only one more attack we need to send the Queen retreating. And we didn't even shred her. We couldn't really get any grenades off safely, so the sharpshooters just punched right through her armor and sent her scrambling. And honestly, that's quite the accomplishment. But again, even if we could have used a grenade, we're still using frags, and they wouldn't have done that much anyway. And yeah, we still haven't acquired a third Elerium core. And we're in July. Sector pods are going to start spawning soon, and we've only found 2 Elerium cores. Just wild. And our chance to get any more is about to be squandered. Right after that facility mission, which was a success, we have a supply raid. But the barracks is still too depleted, and we're still too broke to recruit more troops. So I send in these 3 lucky individuals. They're the only ones available who still have decent will. And I've used this strat a few times in other runs. I'm going to focus on tagging just a couple of crates and then evacing out before anything bad can happen. And on this particular mission, I think there's 2 crates that we should be able to reach quite easily, then we can run away. And the plan does seem to be going well until Advent ends up blowing up one of our crates with a grenade. So now we're only going to be able to get one of them. That is just rude. Now the good news is the assassin does show up here. And I know that might sound crazy. Why on earth would seeing her be good news? But the thing is, we were gonna evac out of this mission anyway. And we're gonna do it well before she can reach us. So her presence here isn't gonna change anything. We had no plans to engage the enemies here anyway. But now that she has showed up, it should be a while before we encounter her again. So yeah, this actually worked out really well. Finally, we have the Shadow Chamber built, so we can start making progress on story research. We are so far behind on this run. And look at these guerrilla ops. When I leave and return to this one in particular, spectres keep disappearing and then reappearing on the spawn list. This is really weird behaviour, and I'm not actually sure if this has happened before, but because the list of enemies is usually longer, I just normally don't notice it. So I thought this was interesting, that's why I mentioned it. Alright, once we deploy on the mission, it's a sewer map, because of course it is. And yeah, we're trying to take out a field commander again. However, we end up getting flanked by some bad guys, and then the Berserker Queen comes charging in at us. So it is time to bounce. We are losing this mission. She stuns Cowboy and knocks Q out cold. And then the walls in the sewer, they're actually kind of helping us as they're blocking her line of sight for some of our actions. Not others though. Other times, they don't block her line of sight. And when they don't, she does still get a reaction turn. But at least she's getting less than what she otherwise would. Now Cowboy comes under fire from both an Andromedon and a Muton, but they thankfully both miss. Now by this point I've evac'd a few soldiers out of here, so the fact that we have less troops on the field I think should be giving Advent an aim debuff. And that might be the only thing keeping us alive. Now Cowboy picks up Q and starts hobbling towards the evac zone, but the field commander has actually gone on Overwatch, which I didn't know, so this could end really badly. Thankfully Cowboy avoids that one too, he's doing really well here. Now the Queen chases after the duo, but she thankfully doesn't attack. I'm not sure why, maybe her running attack was on cooldown because she had already used it. Anyway, somehow everyone makes it out alive. I have no idea how we managed that. So even though we lost the mission, kinda still feels like a win because everyone survived. On the next council mission, I attempt an Overwatch ambush on the pod near the Dark VIP. And yeah, it's pretty crazy to think we're this late into the game and an Overwatch ambush is still our best bet. Normally it's a strat to use in the early game, but as you progress and your soldiers get better abilities, you've normally got much better options at your disposal. And what's really annoying is that because the captain dodges one of our shots, it takes 3 attacks to finish him instead of 2. And that means the Purifier survives. So I end up having to use a Mimic Beacon on a single Purifier. There's just no other way I can see to deal with it. I cannot risk this thing throwing a firebomb on us. That will be devastating. So yeah, using up a Meme Beacon on a single Purifier. Talk about overkill. Also, the Hunter has arrived. Yeah, we've reached his territory by now. His strengths are Beastmaster, All-Seeing, and Low Profile. Now, Low Profile in particular, that's gonna be very bad for us. His weakness is Shell Shocked, which we may be able to exploit, so that's a good one for him to have. So we're able to defeat the Purifier on the next turn, and then I just eliminate the Dark VIP. We can't afford one soldier not being able to attack because they're carrying the body, so I don't even bother trying. We're just going to take the easy way out on this one and forego the intel. Now some reinforcements drop in, but we can Overwatch ambush them and annihilate 2 out of 3 of them straight away, and then the last one's not too bad to deal with. However, what is bad to deal with is this other pod of a heavy mech, Andromedon, and Trooper. And these guys are in the building underneath us. They're using the Lost strats. And that's smart of them to do because underneath us is the absolute worst place for them to be from our perspective. It breaks our line of sight, and if we want to get it back, we have to drop down close to them. And as we know, being close to them is going to reduce our aim. So we end up burning through a Meme Beacon, a Frost Bomb, and a Flashbang to keep these guys at bay, and we still end up taking huge damage. It's so bad that I actually deliberately leave troops out of cover to absorb enemy fire. The reasoning here is that using a full HP unit as a decoy will hopefully prevent Advent from attacking the units who have already taken damage and are on low HP. Spreading the damage out in this manner will leave us with multiple troops on very low health, which isn't good, but it's hopefully gonna avoid any one soldier losing all of their health. And the plan does work, I guess. It does what it's supposed to. Everyone survives the exchange. But we now have 3 soldiers who are on low health and are at risk of getting one shot if they get hit again. So we're frantically running to the evac zone, both because the turn timer is running out, and we're also trying to evade the hunter. I'd really rather not fight this guy. But sure enough, he comes in from the side, ready to flank and obliterate us. We can't take him down in a single turn, we just miss too many shots, and that allows him to summon in a chrysalid. Now thankfully it's only one, but obviously a chrysalid, that's not something that you ever want to see on the battlefield. And check this one out. Bozo takes a shot and misses, but he does destroy the hunter's full cover in the process, turning it into half cover. And his hair trigger activates. That means he's going to be able to take a second shot. And Bozo just blasts him into paste. Yeah, we actually defeated a Chosen. Now mainly because we got the most absurd good luck ever here with Bozo, but after all the bad luck we've had, I think we're due, so I'm going to take this one. So not only does everyone survive the encounter, the mission was actually a victory. A proper, official victory. That's a good feeling. But as you can see, lots of injuries, it did come at a high price. Another guerrilla op sees us activate 2 pods at once. Now these are not super scary enemies. Advent soldiers, Vipers, and a Codex. And we are able to take them out, but it's a real struggle. Once again, we burn through all our resources just trying to keep these regular enemies at bay. 3 mimic beacons, a frost bomb, and a flashbang. And once again, the environment is the main thing hurting us. When we're in a situation with interiors, whether it's lots of buildings or a sewer map, it's just so easy for Advent to break our line of sight. It makes it so difficult to do anything. And we are able to defeat these guys, but there was a point where I did consider evacing out against these fairly trivial opponents. And so with that in mind, what do you think's going to happen when we encounter a sector pod? And remember, all of our items have been used up. The only possible offense we have is shooting. And not even with something like rapid fire or chain shot, it's mostly just a standard single attack. And we have no way of shredding. So yeah, this one, it's an evac. We were able to hack the objective before we left, so at least we stopped the dark event. But yeah, just another setback. We have a victory, but then it's straight to another loss. Now after a covert op, we have our first Colonel. Our abilities are Kubakuri, which I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation there. But it's an attack which can only be used against targets that have already taken damage. A critical hit will instantly destroy them, but a regular hit will do half damage. Now this really doesn't sound very good to me at all. I mean, this is XCOM. Do you think that critical chance is going to trigger when you really need it to? I'm skeptical. There's also multi-targeting, which allows the holo targeter to hit in an AoE, and Hunter's Instincts, which gives +2 damage against flanked enemies. So these 2 abilities could be nice. Now by this point, we have obtained the training center, and that means we can give our troops extra abilities. And I give Stoll here rapid fire. I'm hoping it might help us out with being able to deal with those high HP enemies. But see, what I didn't realise is that it doesn't actually work with squad sight, so it ends up being a lot less useful than I would have liked. And yeah, once again, we have the exact same problem. There's a building. That's pretty much all it takes to stop us. Advent are hiding inside, and we just cannot get a good shot. Even when we can get line of sight, we're too close, so our hit chance suffers. Now, because we can't call for an emergency evac in this mission, I really don't want to burn through all our mimic beacons trying to take out these regular enemies again. We know there's going to be something worse waiting for us, so I want to hold on to some of our stuff. And this leads me to play really recklessly and letting Advent attack us. I figure they're fairly weak enemies, so we should be fine, right? Well, no, we're not fine. Of course we're not fine. This disoriented shield bearer one-shot stole with a crit. Meanwhile, Perry goes berserk because he's lost his bondmate. Well, his second bondmate. I think Red Devil was the first one. And the way this works is that the unit will attack on their own and then panic. And in our case, with our crummy sniper rifles, it's essentially just panic. And yeah, this is a big part of the reason why I don't like bonds. But let me assure you, you ain't seen nothing yet. The Berserker Queen is back. And look how far she can move. And then instead of targeting the meme beacon, the Purifier throws down a firebomb and hits half our squad. Cowboy instantly goes to the Shadow Realm, and this causes Q to go berserk from losing his bondmate. But you want to know what's even better? The shot that Q takes in his berserk state, of course it misses, that's no surprise, but the really messed up part is him taking this shot gives the Berserker Queen another reaction turn. Yeah, she gets a reaction turn from a move that we couldn't even control. And she charges in, eliminating Bozo and stunning Q. And just imagine being Bozo here, getting pulverized into oblivion by this monstrosity, all because your teammate is an idiot. My goodness. And the most garbage part about all this is that Stoll was the one person who could have potentially dealt with the Queen quite effectively. Using rapid fire on the Big Mama could have been really useful. Maybe we could have inflicted enough damage to send her retreating. But no, she had to be one-shot by a shield bearer before the Queen even arrived. Of course she did. So at this point, it's pretty much just every man, woman and child for themselves. We are running for our lives and praying for the best. The Queen targets Jetstream while Perry heads for the hills. Now Jetstream gets knocked out, so he's out of the equation. Perry, on the other hand, his grappling hook actually saves his life. He can propel himself away from the Queen, and that's a free action. She doesn't get a reaction turn from that. Meanwhile, Q starts running up the opposite side of the map. I'm hoping he's going to be safe since he's a fair distance away from the Queen. But no, he runs into another pod and activates it. And on top of that, the VIP gets gunned down and turned into Swiss cheese. So that's another mission that's a loss. Now Q avoids an absurd amount of attacks and it seems like he may actually live, but on his very last move before reaching the evac zone, he takes an Overwatch shot and he goes down. So Perry is the only one who made it back to the Sky Ranger. And I'm gonna be honest here, this was genuinely soul-crushing. Not only have we lost a whole bunch of soldiers, some of our best, and that's potentially run-ending in of itself, the much worse problem is the gear that we've lost. 4 Mimic Beacons and the Frost Bomb, all gone. Now we may be able to get a couple of those items back if we can rescue Jetstream. He is still alive, just captured. But realistically, what do you think our chances of being able to do that are gonna be? The meme beacons were the only things keeping us alive, and even with multiple of them, we can barely handle basic enemies, let alone chosen, or rulers, or sectopods. And yeah, despite my earlier bravado, at this point in time I felt completely helpless. I just don't see any viable path to victory here. These sharpshooters are just not getting the job done. And to tell you the truth, the only reason I didn't restart the run entirely here is because I don't really see any point. I don't want to suffer through the early game all over again, and the only real difference would be hoping for better RNG. No, at this point, either I'm going to win this run right here, or I'm going to chalk this challenge up as a loss. I really don't want to replay these guys. Like, this run is genuinely making me hate this game. It's just so incredibly frustrating. Like, it's not even that every single mission is difficult. It's that almost every single pod within every single mission is difficult. This class requires you to work so hard for so little benefit, and things can go wrong so quickly. You make the tiniest mistake, you can get a squad wipe. So yeah, the approach I'm going with at this point is all or nothing. Either we are going to make the world's greatest comeback, or we're gonna be bitterly defeated. Next up is a supply raid. It's just a regular one where we have to defeat the enemies. There's no loot crates to gather. So we're taking the exact opposite approach to the last supply raid. I move incredibly slowly, just taking our time and making sure we don't get any bad pod activations. I've also given Tony the only aim PCS we have. Yeah, Tony, the guy who may or may not be working for Advent, he's the best soldier we have left at this point. Now the Warlock spawns in and he slows down our already snail's pace movement even further. He's dropping zombies on us every second turn, and of course he drops them really close to us. And our sharpshooters, as we've established, are very garbage at fighting that close. So we end up having to blue move as far as we can to make our chance to hit the least terrible it can be, and I'm using my language very deliberately there. We're not making the to hit chance good, we're just making it suck a bit less. So after about 20 minutes of this horrible process of inching forward, shooting zombies, and then repeating, we finally make it to the Warlock. He summons in 2 priests and mind scorches 2 of our soldiers. Now here, I feel like the battle is turning against us. We saw how hard this guy was to defeat last time, and if he attacks us next turn, he's probably going to mind control one of our soldiers. I really don't want that to happen, and given that I don't see a realistic way we can beat him, it's just way too risky, I decide instead a sacrifice is necessary. I deliberately leave Notch dazed so the Warlock will interrogate him. At least I'm hoping it'll just be an interrogation, but sadly not the case. Poor old Notch gets abducted. Now because of that, the Warlock has left the battle, so we don't have to worry about him. And while losing a soldier is obviously not ideal, I think the trade-off is worth it if it means we can win this supply raid. Hopefully we get a chance to rescue Notch later on. Now we can wipe out the remaining priests and we obtain a much needed victory. And check this out, from winning this mission we obtain 5 Elerium cores. So we're in August by this point, and this one mission has given us over twice as many cores as we've picked up the entire rest of the campaign. I mean, I'm glad to have them, but my goodness has it taken a long time. And here, given these new resources, I decide to shift strategies. See, my initial vision of this run before I started was that we'd have a whole squad in spider suits flying around the map like Spider-Man and using our height to our advantage. But what I've learned is that's simply not practical. The spider suits are way too situational. If you don't get the terrain you need, that grappling hook is gonna be pretty much useless. So it's time to pivot in a new direction. The first thing is plasma grenades. It's absolutely insane how long it's taken us to get these things. But then after that, it's time to start building exosuits. Their rockets will provide even our low-level troops a means of attacking effectively while still being able to move, and it gives us the option to cause a lot of environmental damage. And if we can blow up cover, that's going to make it easier for the rest of the team to mop up any survivors. So yeah, I'm thinking exosuits are definitely the better option here. And you might be wondering, at this stage, should we just wait for war suits? And I'm going to say the answer is no. We're still weeks, if not months, away from war suits. We haven't even been able to start the Elerium research yet, which you need to do first to get to tier 3 armor. And the problem is the Elerium research is locked behind researching the mech wreckage. And we have not obtained a single mech the entire playthrough. We have defeated mechs multiple times, but they were always on missions that we had to evac out of, so we didn't get to keep them. Yeah, just being this far behind on the strategic layer, it is insane. I don't think this has ever happened before. However, before we can build any exosuits, I'm presented with one of those lesser of two evils scenarios. See, the avatar progress has filled. Now, we have 4 options available to counter it. The first 2 are a no-go, the Black Site and the Psionic Gate missions. Now, the Black Site houses the Assassin, and there's just no way we can deal with her high mobility attacks. And as for the Psionic Gate, we have no answer for the Chrysalids. There's no way we're going to survive that mission until we have tier 3 armor at the very least, which as I've just described, that's still a ways away. So even though I say we have 4 options, really we have 2. 2 reasonable options that we might actually win. The first one is an alien facility. Now, if we choose this mission, we can stall long enough that we'll at least have 1 exosuit by the time we deploy. Now, 1 may not sound great, but at this point, I'm taking anything I can get. Of course, the downside is there's going to be an alien ruler there, and we've seen how badly the Queen's presence has been on every mission she's appeared on after that initial facility. So doing this one is a huge gamble. If we get the Viper King, I think we're probably okay, but if it's the Archon King, we're potentially looking at a squad wipe. Even if we can survive the facility mission, he's gonna come back and it's not gonna be good for us. So then what about the other option? Well, we have a guerrilla op here where we could use a Skulljack on a Codex. Now, while dealing with an avatar doesn't sound ideal, it's gonna be easier than a ruler. But there is a couple of caveats to this plan. Firstly, we have to do the mission right now. We cannot wait until that first exosuit is complete, so we're not going to have as many options once we deploy. And secondly, see that enemy unknown there on the enemy list? Well, there's only 1 unit that it could possibly be. Only 1 enemy we haven't encountered yet, and that's a gatekeeper. So a gatekeeper and an avatar on the same mission, definitely not going to be easy. On the flip side, there are 2 major advantages of choosing this option. Firstly, we have the location scout sit rep. So this means we're going to be able to see every enemy on the map the entire time. That's going to really play to our favour. Without that sit rep, I wouldn't even attempt this encounter, but with it, we'll have a lot more control over pod activations, and that could give us a fighting chance. And the second really good thing about this mission is that if we can win, we'll obtain a mech wreckage. That's not only going to unlock Illyrium research for us, which is going to lead to better weapons and armor, but it's also going to give us access to blue screen weapons, which would be awesome to have. So Twitch chat and I agree that the Guerrilla Op is our best bet. And as we get ready for the mission, here's the order of priorities. Most important, we need to take out an avatar. The campaign remaining alive depends on that, so that's priority number 1. Now secondly, we need to eliminate all enemies so we get the corpses. Thirdly, we want to keep our soldiers alive, and yeah, staying alive is number 3 on the priority list. Normally it would be number 1, but not in this case. And fourth and finally, we want to stop the Dark Event. It's a bad one, it's going to place hidden chrysalids on missions. So we certainly don't want that to trigger, but as bad as it is, it's not as bad as losing the entire campaign to avatar progress. So yeah, it's at the bottom of the list. So here we go. This is pretty much the definition of a high risk, high reward situation. If we get squad wiped, it's probably the end of the campaign, assuming the campaign isn't over already and I just don't know it. But if we can win and get that mech, we might finally be able to start getting a foothold against the bad guys. So I kit the team out with everything we have, which at this point isn't really that much. Tony and Gizmo have picked up Shredder as a hidden ability, so I make sure to give that to both of them, even though it means spending some AP from the community pool. It could be very useful against this gatekeeper. Let's hope it turns out to be worth it. Here we go. And it's a sewer map. And honestly, the yelling meme doesn't even do it justice. I was so miserable during this mission. I cannot remember ever being this unhappy playing this game. Like, why a sewer mission? Why couldn't it have been literally anything else? This run is so bad, it's destroying my love of the franchise. Now, don't worry too much, it's nothing that I'm not going to get over in time. There's still going to be plenty of XCOM videos coming out on this channel. But yeah, as I played this mission, I was not in a good place. This was just so obnoxious. Now, here's the problem that I can see. Yes, the codex is there for the taking, that's good, but a second pod with a heavy mech has moved in close enough that if we rush that codex, we're gonna activate this pod as well. That'll leave us with 2 pods plus an avatar. Now that sounds like a very difficult fight, but what choice do I have? The campaign is at stake. We're not gonna get a better opportunity to use the Skulljack, so we need to engage, as absolutely insane as that might seem. So we kick things off with Duncakes, who promptly misses a 90% shot. Yeah, I hate this game. This is just the worst. Thankfully we can take down the Lancer, and then I flashbang the Codex and Purifier. Now I was hoping the Codex would move forward far enough that we would be able to Skulljack without being spotted by the mech pod, but sadly, not to be. So we send in Meme to use that Skulljack, and there's a good chance he's not going to survive the next turn. But even if he doesn't, he's done his part to help keep this run alive. The Avatar is here. And as much as I have been complaining about RNG in this run, and I'm probably going to continue to complain about it, we do actually get really lucky with the mech. It moves forward and cuts off line of sight behind a wall. Now, because of tactical analysis, it cannot move and attack on its next turn. So we have a brief reprieve from its wrath. It's not going to be able to do anything to us, at least for right now. So I plan to use that opportunity to annihilate this avatar. We need to get rid of it. So here we go. Tony has a 92% shot, and thankfully he does hit, but of course we get a dodge, so he inflicts a whopping 1 damage. Now the shred is good, but oh my gosh, these sharpshooters, even when they do something right, they still find a way to get it wrong. And the avatar teleports to a truly rancid spot. The sewer map is really working overtime against us here. Now Duncakes has a stock, so even if he misses, he can force it to relocate to somewhere less terrible. So we take the shot, and that's exactly what he does. And then Gizmo is thankfully able to hit a 58% for a big crit. But once again, the avatar retreats to a horrible location, so I just focus on the Advent soldiers instead. We're not going to get line of sight on the avatar, so we might as well forget about it for this turn. And we're able to wipe out the Purifier, but that's it. So not great. Now thankfully we take no damage, but Meme does get mind controlled by the avatar. And I think he was the only one who had line of sight on it as well, so that's just fantastic. Now I thought I had a pretty amazing strategy here. See, while we don't have line of sight on it anymore, we can destroy a wall with a grenade, and that's going to give us a flanked shot on this thing. So this wall right here, we just need to get rid of it. So I throw down an evac zone just in case we need to bounce, then I get ready to begin the assault. As long as we can eliminate the avatar, we still have a fighting chance. Maybe. So the plan is to take it down, and then like I said, if things get hairy, we can bounce. Now unfortunately, I realise Tony is too far away to make the evac zone in one turn. So that plan's out the window, we're digging in for a fight. Big Money blows a hole in the wall, and I'm ready to send in Gizmo. She can then take the shot, except she can't. Because if she moves, she's going to be set on fire. And this moment right here, this was the lowest of the low for me. It's just like, no matter what I do, no matter what strategy I come up with, the game just shuts it down. There's simply no way to gain the upper hand. It just seems to be impossible. So now we have no shot on the avatar and no chance of taking it down this turn. So once again, we're focusing on the weaker enemies, pretty much all I can do at this point. Now we thankfully can destroy the mech, and I move forward with Gizmo using Hunker Down to put out the fire, so at least now she's away from it for our next turn, and she can hopefully do something more useful. Then on the enemy turn, Advent hits Tony hard, and he's left with 1 HP. And like I said, he's our best soldier. Now the Avatar has gone on Overwatch, but we can repeat the Duncake stock trick to remove the Overwatch and get it to teleport. Big Money hits an amazing crit on the Avatar for 10 damage. And while that sounds really good, the issue here is that this thing is regaining HP every turn, so a lot of the damage we inflicted previously has been healed. So then I come up with another idea. Let's see how this one turns out. See, the Avatar has teleported onto one of those suspended trains. Now we need to get Tony away from this Stun Lancer, because if he takes one more hit, he's probably bound for the Shadow Realm. So we move Tony back towards our squad where the Avatar is, and my plan here is we can hit the Avatar with a grenade, which is going to destroy the floor underneath it. From the grenade plus the fall damage, that's going to be enough to finish it off. Then Gizmo can give Tony a bonded action, and we can continue running him out of line of sight of the bad guys, so they hopefully attack someone else instead. Now at first I panic as it seems the grenade can't be thrown that far, but eventually I am able to get it. We lob the weapon, it connects, but of course there's a problem. See, what I learn here is that apparently the floor on the train is indestructible, so there's no fall damage. And that means the Avatar survives on a single point of HP. And yep, this is what I mean. Everything I try just fails. It's never good enough. This run is seriously the most cursed I've ever done. So we can still attack with Gizmo, but she can't get a shot on the Avatar, so we set our sights on the Lancer, and she thankfully destroys it with a crit. But then check out this garbage. Meme, who is still mind-controlled, he takes a point-blank shot at us and just obliterates Gizmo. And given how close he was, do you know how low his chance to hit must have been with that sniper rifle? I'm honestly out of words. The good news, what little of it there is that Meme's mind control is over. So he's back under our command, and he lands an insane 30% shot on the Avatar, finally finishing it off. So at least Meme is equally as accurate for both us and Advent. I guess I shouldn't complain, but of course I'm gonna complain. Like, I was just in such a foul mood here that even when we made this 30% shot, I didn't even get excited. I was just like, yeah, after how much failure that I've been subjected to here, give me a 30%, I need it. So the Avatar is down, and that's going to reduce the Avatar progress for us. Priority number 1 has been achieved. We continue hanging on to this run by the skin of our teeth. Now the next pod is a Muton and a Spectre, and we destroy them both quite easily, and then it's just the Gatekeeper and 2 Codexes that we have to deal with. Now the pod hasn't moved in an eternity. I've been keeping an eye on what they've been doing this whole time, and at first I consider going to the high ground, but then I remember that's a trap. The pod will just move underneath us, breaking our line of sight, and we will be completely helpless. No, I think the better option is we hug the wall in the long corridor that the pod is occupying. This will allow us to maximize our use of squad sight and long range attacks. We want that pod to have to move as far as they possibly can. And I should also note here that we failed the hacking objective by a country mile, so that Chrysalid Dark event is going to trigger after this mission. Certainly not good, but like I said, it was low on the priority list. Now, of course, even though this pod hasn't moved in forever, once we get too close, that's when they decide to start moving towards us. I was really hoping that on our turn we would have had a chance to steady our weapons or set up an Overwatch, something like that would have been really good, but it's not to be. We're engaging right now. And the strategy here is, well, it's not much of a strategy at all. We start with rapid targeting to give our troops the best chance to hit possible, and then we just start shooting. This is like musket-era warfare. We're just standing in the open, firing our guns, and we're hoping the enemy falls down before we do. If we make our shots, we live. If we don't make them, we don't. Now the squad does well, but Meme misses his shot, and we needed all of them to connect to destroy that gatekeeper. Unfortunately, we're one short. Now I bet if he was taking this shot against our troops, man, he would have made it no problem. But snark aside, the gatekeeper moves in, and even though we used a medikit to heal Tony, he still gets wiped out by the big egg. Now the good news is we have the psionic feedback ability, and the feedback damage actually destroys the gatekeeper for us. And the same thing happens to one of the codexes. So that leaves one codex remaining, and we are able to take it out without sustaining any further damage. So we have defeated the bad guys, we have won the mission, we are going to get that mech wreckage, but it has come at an immense cost. Random chrysalids are now going to be spawning on missions, which could spell disaster, and the only 2 soldiers we had with the shred ability, we've lost them both. So the question is, was this sacrifice worth it? And I honestly don't know. I guess we'll see. But for right now, we've staved off losing the campaign. We're still in this thing. We've got our mech wreckage. Let's go and make some progress towards that late game research. And at this time, I might as well show you the memorial list. The amount of soldiers we've lost is absurd. I think there's only 3 left who we started the campaign with. 4 if you include Notch, who's been captured. But yeah, all the rest of them, they didn't make it. Now this is bad because it means we have to spend valuable supplies on purchasing more recruits. And on top of that, when we bring these recruits into battle, because they're squaddy level, they're pretty useless. And we need a lot better than useless at this particular point in time. At the next council drop, I select the resistance order that will allow us to build exosuits instantly. We can build a few of them, but they do require trooper corpses, and we run out of those, so that's what limits our purchasing power. Yeah, even once we've got the cores, we're still not in the position we want to be in. But nonetheless, for the next mission, you can see that we have obtained quite a few power-ups. We have 3 exosuits, which is way better than none, and we have a set of blue screen rounds, as well as an EMP bomb. And in addition to this, what you can't see here is that we actually got breakthrough research for +1 damage to our mag weapons as well. And with this power spike, for the first time in quite a long time, we win a mission with minimal injuries, only 1. And on top of our new toys, the biggest thing we have working for us here is the map. It's full of huge open spaces and plenty of high ground for us to occupy. Probably the best map for snipers in the whole game. And even then, the mission is still close. There's another gatekeeper, and the only reason we can take it out in one turn is because McFluffles here makes a ridiculous 21% shot. If he had missed that, the gatekeeper would have been able to attack, and things may have gone very differently on this one. So as disturbing as this man's appearance may be, he saved our bacon on this one. Now we did miss out on about half the loot crates, so we're still not dominating by any means, but we are hanging in there. We may still have a chance of victory, even if it's only a small one. Now after this, Perry reaches Brigadier level, and it's kind of crazy how this guy has become our best soldier simply by staying alive. He misses easy shots regularly, he doesn't have any particularly good hidden abilities, he's just managed to keep breathing, and that makes him better than almost everyone in this campaign. So our choices are double tap, which allows us to take a standard shot and then gain a second action, which is restricted to another shot or an Overwatch. And then there's Alpha Mike Foxtrot, which gives our rifle a straight +4 damage. That's sounding alright. And finally Serial, which is the same as Vanilla. So some really nice abilities here. They saved all the powerful ones for the end. It's about time we have some decent abilities on our troops. Also, that mission has given us one more Elerium core, so that's pretty nice. And we finally start to get lucky with the covert ops, and we are able to reduce the avatar progress that way. And that is helping a great deal with taking some of the pressure off the strategic layer. Now by the next guerrilla op, Perry has both Alpha Mike Foxtrot and Serial, so he's a bit of a beast. And it's really, really nice having a soldier who can make multiple attacks per turn. That's generally one of the things that make you really powerful in this game, having the ability to do that. But when I said Serial works just like vanilla, I wasn't quite correct. I'm pretty sure in vanilla it has a 5-turn cooldown. Well, here it has a 7-turn cooldown. 7 turns, so most of the time you are using this once per mission. We cannot rely on it all the time, at least not until we have more Brigadiers. Once we do, then it's going to be awesome. But sadly, as this mission progresses, Zionzi gets Shadow Realmed on his very first mission out. And yeah, that's how bad this run is. Even a guy literally named Plot Armor cannot survive a single mission. And it was the hidden chrysalid that was the main factor. Yeah, I knew that was going to come back to bite me. So we're still taking damage and we are still losing troops. And while that may sound bad, we are at least racking up some victories. We can actually win missions somewhat consistently now. And for how long we've been stuck in the gutter, this is actually a really good feeling. As long as we can stay on top of the avatar progress, I'm thinking maybe we can actually win this thing. Maybe it's possible that the comeback of the century is actually within our grasp. So let's have a look at the next retaliation mission. We encounter 2 pods right next to each other, a heavy mech, Archon, and a bunch of chrysalids. Now that's not amazing, but like I said, we do have blue screen rounds now, and that makes the mechs a lot less scary. And we can hit all 3 chrysalids with 1 rocket. And the really significant part about that is once that rocket takes some of their health, that means that Perry can one-shot them pretty easily. We even get 2 dodges in a row from the chrysalids, but we still inflict the minimum amount of damage required to exterminate them. And we actually end up wiping out every enemy in the 1 turn. And that combination of Serial and Alpha Mike Foxtrot with the +4 damage, that is completely saving our hide here. The assassin is on this one, and I think we have yet to defeat her a single time in the campaign, so let's see if we can do it this time. I was rushing to this building to get some high ground before she reached us, but it turns out the map's a lot smaller than I thought, and she actually hits us the very next turn after spawning in. And as if that's not bad enough, a pod has activated at the same time. But in this moment, things actually work out quite nicely for us. And I might have used this combo in an earlier mission, but it's here that it really hit home just how useful it can be in the right circumstance. See, Death from Above can combo with Snapshot, and that means if we have the height advantage, we can potentially shoot infinitely in 1 turn, as long as we can keep racking up bodies, or until we need to reload at the very least. Now you can't get both of these abilities until you have the training center built, and that has taken us a very long time with our shortage of engineers and resources. And like I said, it is situational. If you don't have decent high ground with good line of sight, it's not going to be that helpful. But on this mission, it proves very helpful. Even when we uncover a nearby faceless, it doesn't really matter. Perry can just keep shooting. And again, that +4 damage, it makes it really easy for him to take enemies out. We then get super lucky with a battle scanner. Yeah, we can actually afford a battle scanner by this point. Pretty fancy, I know. But the reason we're lucky is that not only do we find the assassin, we have her flanked. She didn't decide to take cover from us. Now, she has developed immunity to explosions by this point, but the rockets are still useful to shred her armor. You know, seeing as none of our snipers have the ability to do that anymore. And then look at this, Precision Shot absolutely destroys her with a 36 damage crit. Just insane. Now, there is another Faceless and the Priest from earlier to clean up, but they're not really anything to worry about. And this mission is a victory. Not only was it a victory, it was an easy victory. With the assassin. It has been so long since we had any easy victory. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe that comeback is here. And I think one of the biggest things is actually having supplies that we can spend on useful items. The exosuits, the blue screen rounds, even the battle scanner. All of these things are giving us new options that we didn't have before. And the way we've been getting those supplies is mostly from expanding to new regions. That's increasing the amount in the supply drops the council is giving us. Then we have this guerrilla op. It's a horde mission and the reward is even more supplies. So yeah, why not? I was just singing their praises. Let's get some more of them. But the really cool thing here is that because there's only Lost, I can afford to send some low-level soldiers. The ones we recruited to replace our Herculean list of losses. So it's 3 sergeants and 3 squaddies. And being able to send out these low-level troops is really nice. It's gonna leave the higher-leveled ones to recover their injuries and will, and without giving away any spoilers, that's gonna be very important to us quite soon. Now, squaddies are especially terrible since they can't have snapshot, but again, it's only Lost, so the enemies aren't too bad. And even when we get a bad concealment blow, it doesn't actually matter that much. Most of the Lost are in the waterway underneath us, so we can stand our squad of newbies at the access points that they would use to climb up. We can cut them off. Now the mission takes absolutely ages, but we win pretty easily. We use the usual strat with the Lost. We're just going to get on the high ground and pick them off as we can. So yeah, really happy with the low-level soldiers here. This was awesome. Because with that mission done, the high-level troops are now ready to hit the assassin's base. Now I actually think the hunter will be easier, plus he's going to give us a much better reward, but there's 2 reasons we want to get the assassin. Firstly is that she's almost reached maximum power. We want to avoid a base defense, so she needs to go. And in addition, once we get rid of her, the black site is going to be a lot easier. And that's going to give us a means to reduce the avatar progress, which is nearly full again. Plus it'll allow us to continue with the story research. And even better, we do have powered armor by this point, but since most of the squad is rocking exosuits and our 1 spider suit, we're actually not really using the tier 3 armor. I mean, 1 guy has it, and you never know when that might make a difference, so it's still a good thing. But yeah, it's a weird situation to be in. And also, because of that retaliation mission, we finally have a mimic beacon again, so that's very nice. Alright, let's do this. If we win this mission, we have an easy black site waiting for us as a nice reward. If we lose, we have almost no high-level soldiers left, we'll have lost all of our good gear, and it'll pretty much be a guaranteed game over. Does anyone remember that first sharpshooter video I did? Anyway, let's give this one our best. Now, despite missing the first 2 shots that are both over 70% chance to hit, that's a less than 7% chance of happening, just so you know. And again, that's not including hidden aim buffs. But even despite this nonsense, we're still able to wipe out the first pod. But it does require us to use Serial with Perry. Now, Meme has the Phantom ability, so I'm using him as a scout. Now, we find this pod, and they take up full cover in the room adjacent to the one we're in. And our to-hit chances are just dreadful here. Around 30% on most of the bad guys. And there's no high ground available, so death from above isn't going to help us. So what on earth do we do? Only thing we can do, we take the 34% shot. And Duncakes lands it, one-shotting the captain into oblivion. Well, that certainly makes up for the 77% miss on the last pod. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. The RNG in this run is just so backwards. Now, by this stage, Duncakes had picked up Lethal as a hidden ability that gives his sniper rifle +2 damage, so that's why I retrained him from a concealment sharpshooter to a damage dealer. That's a really nice ability for him to get. I figured he was better off playing a more offensive role. Now, Brickford can flashbang the 2 surviving Advent soldiers, but then another pod patrols into us. Plus, the shield bearer can still trigger its shield while disoriented. So this is honestly really bad. It's time to break Meme's concealment. We need all the firepower we can get. Now Perry, with his big amounts of damage, he can one-shot the mech with precision strike, but the next play that I make is a pretty terrible one. I'm going to use precision strike with Brickford, but the thing is, it's only a 58% chance to hit, so most likely we're just going to miss and we're going to waste the ability. But I am desperate. I want to take this thing out. We have really limited options. If this purifier sets half the squad on fire, this one is over. And besides, there's always the chance that we will hit with precision strike, and if we do...
X-ray neutralized.
Yeah, that's what we call a one-shot. And that's through the shield. A one-shot through the shield. Absolutely clutch. Brickford is literally keeping the entire run alive right now. I'm genuinely convinced that Bradford is the evil twin. Now, given that worked so well, how about we push our luck a little further? What about a 34% precision strike with big money here? And yeah, she makes it. I cannot believe this. This is just ridiculous. I've been complaining about bad RNG for so long. I gotta give props here. We are getting so lucky. So I attempt to finish the trooper off with a 31% shot from McFluffles, and he makes it as well. The trooper goes down. And the really funny thing here is the chance of landing all of those last 3 shots is also less than 7%. So it really is balancing with the bad luck we got at the start of the mission. The RNG is truly give and take in this one. This is like the Thanos run, all things in balance. Just absurd. 7%. However, in all my excitement, I have forgotten about an Archon that's out of line of sight. Just in the chaos, it slipped my mind. So that's not good, and the shield bearer goes on Overwatch. Now we can remove that easily with Brickford stock, so that's not too much to worry about. Then Duncakes can give Brickford a bonded action so that he still has the opportunity to move out of the way of the blazing pinions. We desperately try to take this Archon down, but it seems we've used up all our good luck because no one can hit this thing. I think we only connected 1 shot this entire turn. Now thankfully that 1 shot that did land eliminated the shield bearer, so it's not all bad, but I don't like leaving this Archon alive. It returns to the ground and it attacks Perry, but he thankfully survives. Then on the next turn we can finally get rid of this flying monstrosity. We just need to protect Perry for the rest of the mission, avoid him taking any more hits. But yeah, this was a super difficult encounter. If we hadn't made that series of insanely low shots and gotten our less than 7% chance, this could have easily been a squad wipe. The team really came through for us when we needed it, and I'm so grateful. Maybe I need to start being a bit nicer to these guys. I can't promise that's going to happen though. There is still one more pod to deal with, and it's a pretty annoying one as well. There's lots of Vipers, so this one could have gone quite badly, but thankfully we can use tactical analysis to break line of sight on the first turn. This gives us the time we need to finish the pod off. Sadly, the Codex can still psionic bomb us, so that's a lot of troops who have to reload and aren't going to be able to shoot. We're relying on Perry to make a 79% shot, but he's back to his old self, he can't do it. So we end up having to use 2 of our rockets to finish off 2 Vipers, each on a sliver of HP. Now this is completely overkill, but I don't want to risk getting poisoned, so we will surrender the rockets. Hopefully we don't need them in the final chamber. The first enemies that we find in there are just some Advent goons, so they go down without too much trouble. And then it's time to face off against the assassin. Now a battle scanner can easily locate her, and then we use rapid targeting with Meme. Duncakes does still have his rocket at least, so we can shred and destroy the assassin's cover. And once we've done that, it's time to start shooting. That's what we do best, or sometimes worse, depending on the situation. But in this case, all goes to plan, we wipe her out pretty easily. The reinforcements though, they're bad. An Archon and a Berserker, that is a lot of HP that we have to deal with. Or maybe we don't. I've saved the Mimic Beacon, I figured we'd need it here, so that's our go-to. We're going to throw that thing down, and we can focus fire on the sarcophagus. And this is actually one thing the sharpshooters are really good at. Thanks to squad sight, they can hit the big device regardless of their position in the room, and they don't have to worry about missing. So we can destroy it with one action to spare, and one's all we need to throw down the meme beacon. And now it's all or nothing. We use our last battle scanner to locate the assassin. I'm going to ignore the other enemies and focus everything we have on Lady Dreadlocks. Our last rocket can again shred and turn her full cover into half cover. Not as good as last time, but better than nothing. And also, it's here I learned dual strike cannot be used with squad sight, so that's a little bit annoying. However, we can move Brickford forward and then use dual strike with Duncakes. And yes, that does mean these guys have a maximum level bond by now. I have been working on bonds in the background. Again, I figure we need every option we can get, so I've been pretty happy with bonds this run. But the real problem here is our chance to hit with our troops just isn't that great, because she's still in cover. And as we know, the assassin has kinetic plating, so every time we miss, we're giving her more health. Low chance to hit, more health if we miss. That's not a good combination for us. But it's big money, she usually comes through in these moments, and she does it again. She lands a 64% shot to finish the assassin off. And we only had one shot left after her, and then our turn would have been over. So it was a really close fight, but we did pull it off. I'm really not sure we deserved this win. We got really lucky at some parts, but of course I'm still gonna take it. Now for the next council mission, Perry is leading a squad of mostly low-level soldiers. Everyone else is too tired. Perry's really been putting in good work on this run. And look, I can't talk about every mission in detail because otherwise we're just going to be here forever. But as you can probably guess, with a bunch of low-ranked soldiers, we're pushing the fecal matter up the mountainside once again. Like, the first pod is 2 Archons and an Andromedon, and that's just way too much HP for us to deal with. So we have to use our meme beacon on the very first pod, only for a sector pod to patrol into us before we've even finished with the current enemies. Not to mention a Faceless spawns in because the Infiltrator Dark event has triggered. I think that makes that the second time that's happened on this run. Also, there's a pod of reinforcements that we have to deal with. And then a final pod of Advent troops to engage. Oh, and one more Faceless, can't forget that. And once again, our squad makes some absolutely heroic shots to take all these bad guys out. They actually do really well. And the biggest danger is the turn timer, as it almost expires before we're finally able to evac out. And that would cause our entire team to be captured, so we obviously want to avoid that. And the thing that really annoyed me about this mission is the Shadow Chamber told us there would be 9 enemies. We ended up taking out 16, almost double what we were told. That is some horrible intel that we're getting right now. This mission was legitimately obnoxious. But as annoying as it was, a mission like this in the early game, it would have been a squad wipe, no questions asked. And even though we did rack up quite a few injuries, everyone survived. So things are actually going well for us, even if it doesn't always feel like it. And then something weird happens. Our very next mission is another council mission, 2 in a row. I'm not sure I've seen that before, but I'm going to take it because this one is giving us the chance to save Jetstream. That's the guy who got KO'd by the Berserker Queen. Now, if we can get him out successfully, not only do we have another soldier we can use, he actually has our Frost Bomb and our Mimic Beacon. They are some useful tools that I would love to have back in our possession. Well, things start off quite badly with a concealment blow, activating 2 Vipers, an Archon, a Gatekeeper, and some Advent soldiers. I've got a bad feeling about this one, y'all. Now, by this stage, Chan does have Death from Above and Snapshot, so she's kind of our discount Perry, and we just need to score as many eliminations with her as we can. But before I do that, I grenade the Viper that's come to the roof to join us. It's not going to one-shot it, but by blowing up the floor underneath it, sending it down below, it will break line of sight, and with tactical analysis, that's going to buy us precious time to deal with the other enemies. We're able to wipe out the other Viper as well as the Gatekeeper, and the Gatekeeper's obviously the main thing. It could have one-shot our mean beacon, but with it gone, the rest of the enemies are guaranteed to leave us alone and focus on the beacon instead. At least that's what I thought. Remember that Viper we sent to the floor underneath us? Well, what I learned in this run is that Poison Spit doesn't actually need line of sight to hit. So 4 out of our 6 soldiers are poisoned just like that. This is why you always want to prioritize Vipers. They are a dangerous enemy. Now the poison should wear off before it takes any of our soldiers' lives. I think it normally lasts like 2 to 3 turns. But in the meantime, their aim is significantly reduced. Plus, we want to avoid taking any further damage from them, because at that point, it may be enough to finish them off. Now, rockets do prove really helpful here. They bypass the aim stat, so we can still be inflicting good damage. Now, Chan makes a 34% shot on the Viper, though I think it was actually 49% with hidden aim buffs. But either way, still an impressive shot, and I'm really grateful she hit this. And then check out this cheese I come up with. We use Dual Strike with Brickfed to take out the Purifier. So after having already fired once from Dual Strike, Duncakes gifts a bonded action to Brickfed. We then fire with Duncakes using Snapshot. Now he misses, of course. Meanwhile, Brickfed cannot shoot since he doesn't have line of sight on the Archon. But what he can do is use the pair's second bonded action to give an action back to Duncakes. Our boy Duncakes takes his 3rd shot of the turn, and this one connects, taking down the Archon. So yeah, a gun that's supposed to take 2 actions to fire, we just fired 3 times in 1 turn. This was a pretty cool display. Now we move into the prison to extract Jetstream, and look at this absolute collaborator of a civilian. See, I knew there was a pod beyond this door since the squad could hear it. I was planning on gathering around the door, opening it at the start of our turn, and then raining down the pane. But nah, Alan Snyder wannabe here just runs through the door and opens it prematurely. So the pod activates straight away and we are out of position. This was so annoying. Also, shout out to anyone who got that reference. Tactical analysis once again keeps us safe as we're not able to finish the pod on our turn. We do send the mech to the scrapyard though, and that's the most important thing. And once again, as soon as we're done with those villains, the game drops some reinforcements on us. It's really enjoying doing that lately. And at this point in time, it seems the team is as over this garbage as I am. There's no missing easy shots here. Our squad rips Advent apart. And then everyone evacs out and Jetstream is back in the fold. So not only do we have another Mean Beacon and Frost Bomb, he actually has a promotion too, I guess from that mission he got knocked out on. And yeah, I'm going to say you've earned this one. Keeping hold of that Mean Beacon and Frost Bomb, that is so awesome to have those things back. Before long, the avatar progress fills again. Now, this entire time I've been expanding towards regions housing alien facilities. We're gonna hit the black site this time, but we do have 1 facility as a backup, plus there's 2 more that we're getting really close to. And managing the strategic layer in this manner is super important. Our sharpshooters have finally reached a point where they can at least hold their own on the tactical layer, for the most part anyway. So right now, the strategic layer may actually be the bigger threat. We're not getting any covert ops to reduce avatar progress, so making sure we have facility missions available when we need them is going to be key to our survival. Now there is also the psionic gate that I mentioned previously, but I'm going to treat that one as a last resort. So we deploy on the black site. Most of the soldiers are high level except for Ligmac here. He's a corporal, but I figure taking 1 low level to get some XP isn't gonna hurt. And between medikits, mean beacons, EMP bombs, blue screen rounds, and the frost bomb, I'm actually struggling to decide what items we should bring. And after so much time having basically zero options when it comes to utility items, this is a really nice problem to have. There's just too much good stuff to choose from, and we can't bring it all. This run is actually starting to feel like a normal solo class run. Now don't get me wrong, our sharpshooters are still the worst class I've ever used by a country mile, but they've at least descended from truly terrible to simply mediocre. And progress is progress. Now there's not too much to say about the black site honestly. The highest leveled enemies that spawn are Archons and Andromedons, plus there's no time limit, so we can just leisurely take our time annihilating anything that gets in our way. I do have to say though, my favourite part of the mission is one-shotting this turret through squad sight. With how annoying those things have been lately, it's nice to wipe one of them out so easily, like it was nothing. And yeah, we grab the vial and we bounce. Some reinforcements do get dropped on us, but we're able to outrun them. Everyone makes it out of an easy mission, and I gotta say, having an easy mission, that's a really nice change of pace. Don't get used to it though, the next mission is obnoxious. The plan is to move Meme, who is Phantom, up a new squad site on the device that we have to destroy, but this priest just isn't going to let us do that. Meme can't move without blowing concealment from the priest, and whether it's our troops missing easy shots or the priest going into concealment, poor Meme is stuck right where he is. And I mean, this isn't a big deal, it's not a huge barrier, it's just really annoying. And while this did offend me greatly, I actually learned something really interesting here. See, the priest, once it comes back from stasis, it mind controls Perry. Now, based on Perry's location, he should blow Meme's concealment. But he doesn't. Our boy remains concealed. So apparently mind-controlled units don't ruin concealment. I never knew that. I tell you, I've learned so many weird mechanics about these games doing these videos, and it's honestly pretty cool. Also on this one, the Hunter does show up, and he's learned Planewalker by this stage, so he's just the worst. Every time we hit him, he's gonna teleport. Now we thankfully can counter him doing that with the Frost Bomb now that it's back in our possession, and this stops the Edgelord from being able to teleport. That makes it much easier for us to deal damage to him. So yeah, a little bit of annoying mission, just small things getting in our way, overall still successful. But alas, our old friend the Avatar project is back in full force, and by old friend I mean most hated enemy, obviously. Our options are still an alien facility or the Psionic Gate mission. I opt for the alien facility. It is housing an alien ruler, and I'm just hoping desperately for the Viper King rather than the Archon King. Now, given I've just said I want the Viper King, you all know exactly what is going to happen on this mission. Yeah, of course, it's the Archon King. What else? Now, once again, our boy Meme is serving as our concealed scout. If we had Long Watch, this would absolutely annihilate the king. We could just destroy him with Overwatch shots. But that would require investing a lot of AP for an ability that outside of this one niche scenario, it's not going to be that useful. So instead we go with a different strat. We put everyone on Overwatch and then Brickford lures the big boy in with a rocket. That's going to shred the king of some of his armor, and then he moves in, allowing us to hit big damage with Overwatch. And Overwatch is really nice on the rulers if you can set it up from beyond their line of sight. It denies them a reaction turn, and that's always what you want to do when you can. And what's even better is that Meme can get a hollow target off from concealment, which gives the rest of the team a better chance at hitting those Overwatch shots. So we inflicted some really good damage here. This was honestly pretty glorious. But no matter how much damage we inflict, the king has 112 HP, so one round of overwatching isn't going to be enough to deal with him. Now he's able to grab Brickford, and you can see the man just T-posing in the air here. That's a cursed image for sure. Now Perry is able to damage the king with a precision shot, causing him to lose his grip. Now, I thought if you interrupted this attack, the grabbed unit still took some fall damage, but no, despite falling from essentially the distance of a second-story building, Brickford is fine. What a Chad. And now the king actually starts fleeing. Brickford and Duncakes hit him with a dual strike on the way out, so the next time we encounter him, his HP should be in the 30s. We took about 80 HP of his health, and he didn't even damage us. That's honestly incredible. I figured we were going to be in the fight of our lives against this guy. It's actually crazy how far our sharpshooters have come. Like, in the beginning of the game, they couldn't do anything, and now they're showing up the single most dangerous enemy in the entire game. We're certainly on the comeback trail, that's for sure. I think we can do this. The problem is though, and it's a common problem in these runs, the A team by this point is extremely strong, but once they're tired and were forced to send out lower level soldiers, things don't go nearly as smoothly. Like this one where Chan gets demolished by a gatekeeper. Now thankfully she goes into bleed out rather than the Shadow Realm, but I don't want to push my luck any further here, so I opt to evac out. And while this may seem bad, I'm actually pleased about it. Like, the problem we're having right now, the strongest troops can't deploy on every single mission, that's actually a good problem to have. It means that we at least have some strong troops. And like I said, this is an issue we experience on most of these solo class runs. Now, it is more pronounced here, seeing as we've racked up so many casualties and we have less high-leveled soldiers than we normally would. But even so, this means we're making progress. And the mission was still successful. We did grab some loot crates. So yeah, I've honestly got no complaints about this one. This wasn't too bad. So things are definitely improving by this point, but this may be the real test. A sewer mission. And we have to eliminate a field commander. Let's see how we go. Now he tries running, but we wipe him out as he flees. And it's really good he's been dealt with, since 1, we've not only stopped the Dark event, but 2, we don't have a turn timer to worry about. Now I'm expecting the Archon King to be here, so I fall back with the entire squad minus Ligmac. He's very low level, so he has the job of venturing into the unknown to grab the loot. Not an envied position at all. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is heading back to where we spawned, and you can see our starting position has elevated ground, and that's really good. Plus it's in this long corridor where there's limited cover. We can basically turn this area into a hallway of doom and inflict big damage on anything that enters this space using squad sight. And we're going to be able to attack them long before they can attack us. Of course, the plan only works if we have someone to lead the bad guys into the hallway. And sure enough, the Archon King soon gets line of sight on our low-level boy Ligmac. So we start sprinting, but if you end your turn outside of the ruler's line of sight, apparently they don't get a reaction turn. Now this is actually perfect. The King's Archon bodyguard follows Ligmac, while the King himself just stays where he is. So we wipe out the underling, and now it's just us and the King himself. I don't think there's any other enemies on the map. So Ligmac, you're going in to act as bait. I set up another Overwatch ambush just like I did on the facility mission, but this time the Archon King doesn't take the bait. It's as if he knows exactly what my plan is, so he just hangs back and starts taking pot shots at Ligmac. Everyone else is beyond his line of sight, but he seems to have zero intention of moving in closer. He's not falling for the same trick twice. And this is actually pretty smart of him. If he wipes out Ligmac and breaks our squad sight, we're gonna have to move towards him. And that is the last thing we want. That's probably gonna end in disaster. So the strategy becomes pretty simple. We hunker down with Ligmac to keep him as safe as possible, and then we start taking squad sight shots with the rest of the team. And we're just hoping the King keeps missing until we can wipe him out. And sure enough, good for Ligmac's sake, that's exactly what happens. Our snipers are able to eliminate the Archon King without him so much as landing a scratch on any of our troops. This was a Herculean effort, and I think it's finally official. We've evolved from Magikarp to Gyarados. We have a council mission next, and we finally have beam weapons by this point. It's almost December in the campaign when we're obtaining tier 3 weapons. Research has been a real pain this run, as have most things. Anyway, it's looking like we're going to be able to run past a whole heap of enemies and just book it to the evac. But at the last second, the Warlock decides he has other ideas. He's in our way. And I decide hitting him with a rocket is the best strat, but this only ends up activating 2 extra pods. So I would have been way better off just shooting at him through his cover and hoping for the best. Now this one was really precarious. Within 2 turns, the Warlock summons in 2 Priests and 4 Spectral Lancers, so that's 6 extra enemies on top of the ones we already had to deal with. This is insane. Now it takes ages and we do take some hits, but everyone does survive. And the main thing I want to show off in this mission is this Andromedon here. It's trying to reach a ladder to climb up to us and punch us into oblivion, but I have the big-brained idea of using a grenade to not only send it tumbling to the ground below, but we can destroy the ladder completely. So the Andromedon's not getting up there. So that's really good, but it has fallen out of our line of sight. So to take it out, I end up sending Brickford in.
Close range.
Turns out I did get to use that one again. Nice. Anyway, our boy has a stock and the tin can only has 1 HP left. So even if Brickford misses, he's still going to finish it off. So we are safe, and that's obviously the main thing. But I don't know, sending Brickford in for close range, it just feels unnatural somehow. And what's even more disturbing is that he makes the shot. It's as if he's right in his element. I am not okay with this. So after that mission, the Warlock is reaching maximum strength, so we need to take him out. And by this stage, not only do we have beam weapons, we scored the breakthrough research for them to do +1 damage as well. And our Brigadiers with Alpha Mike Foxtrot are just doing absurd amounts of damage. Like Brickford does a minimum 16 damage. Minimum. It's just absurd. The problem is, since he doesn't have any scopes or similar items to buff his aim, his chance to hit kind of sucks. Now Meme can help out from concealment, and including rapid reaction, he can target 3 enemies in a turn with his holo targeter. Now the pod has 4 enemies, but one of the Archons panicked after seeing the Icarus suit that we now have. So yeah, holo targeting 3, that's perfect for us. We just need Brickford to mop up the other 2 Archons and the Andromedon with Serial, but unfortunately, even after the holo targeting, his chance to hit still sucks, and he misses. So one Archon survives and attacks Chan, and then she gets punched by the Andromedon wreck, and I was really worried we were going to lose her here, but she thankfully survives on 2 HP. Now in retrospect, obviously I should have used a Mimic Beacon here. I was feeling a bit too confident given our recent power spike, and I really didn't want to spend one of our beacons on the very first pod. But yeah, lesson learned, I need to protect Chan for the rest of the mission. That's the top priority. We do not want to lose any high-leveled soldiers at this point in the game. Thankfully, the rest of this section goes off without a hitch, and we head to the final chamber. And look at this. Chan, with blue screen rounds, can one-shot a heavy mech. And then Duncakes one-shots the accompanying purifier. This is so good. Once the Warlock arrives, we can forfeit Meme's concealment. Yeah, he's actually been in concealment the entire mission so far. We haven't needed him to attack. So we hit the Skullet King with a rocket to shred and destroy his cover, and then Brickford and Duncakes can use a dual strike. They inflict a combined 44 damage, and that's through 2 points of armor. The Warlock is getting absolutely destroyed here. One more shot wipes him out, and we then focus on the sarcophagus. And we're nearly able to take it out in the same turn too. It only has a handful of HP left by the time we're done. Normally, I'd say this is the part where we use a mimic beacon to distract the enemy reinforcements, but when you can one-shot a berserker, it's not really necessary to distract them, is it? So the Warlock returns with 50 HP, and he does about as terrible as he did the last round. We finish him off quite easily. This was definitely an easier battle than the Assassin. Another win for the good guys. Things are looking really good for us right now. The next guerrilla op is a Protect the Device mission. Now there's a gatekeeper on this one, and I'm worried that it's just going to roll right into the device and destroy it instantly. So I push forward really quickly in order to close the distance as fast as we can. Now unfortunately this leads to activating 2 pods at once, and there's some pretty nasty enemies, a gatekeeper and 2 heavy mechs. Now of course a lot of the high level soldiers are resting after the Warlock's base, and so all of these things unfortunately add together and result in us losing McFluffles. Just moving too quickly, too many enemies, we didn't have the firepower we needed. And he was pretty high level, so losing him is definitely not ideal. But at the same time, we've gone so many missions without losing anyone, we can afford to lose one person. Like, I'm actually skipping over missions in the video at this point because they're just by the numbers encounters. And that wasn't really happening at all earlier in the run, hence the exorbitant runtime of this video. Now obviously we'd rather not lose anyone if we can help it, but it's not going to end the campaign or anything like that. But still, rest in peace McFluffles, and thank you for your service. After this one, we get a mission to rescue Easton from Chosen captivity, even though the Chosen who captured him is deceased. Whatever, this game's weird sometimes. The point is, Notch is one of only 4 people who we started this campaign with and who is still alive. So we're deploying to get him back. The game tries the same nonsense it did the last time I played one of these missions on this channel. It spawns the evac zone quite far away, but that is a trick and I am not falling for it this time. We can actually deploy a new evac zone wherever we want, right next to us in fact. So obviously that's what we're going to do. Now Big Money does end up getting hit by an Overwatch, but it's only from a trooper, so it's not going to one-shot her, and we make it out in one piece. Notch is back on the team. This is really good. Then I do something pretty unusual for these runs. I choose to go after the Viper King. And when I say I choose to, I mean we don't need to. The avatar progress isn't full, so we could leave this guy alone, but I'm not going to do that. See, we eliminated the Archon King pretty easily, so I'm thinking the Frost Boy, by comparison, he should be really easy. And getting rid of him will give us access to his armor. That's going to be nice to have. But truth be told, there's a bigger reason we want to get this guy. See, there's a mechanic in this game I don't think I've talked about before. If you encounter an alien ruler enough times without managing to finish them off, they'll actually disappear from the game. And they won't return until you've either dealt with the other 2 rulers, or the other 2 rulers have done the same thing. You've encountered them a few times and then they disappear. The rulers kind of form a queue, I guess, so that you're not always fighting the same one all the time. And I haven't really dealt with this mechanic since War of the Chosen released, because with this expansion, it's pretty easy to avoid the rulers now. But yeah, back when I played the base game with the ruler DLC, this was a pretty common occurrence for me. The Queen might disappear, and the Archon King would replace her, and then once you get rid of the Archon King, then the Queen will come back, as an example. So the reason I'm talking about this mechanic now is that we have reached that limit encounter with the Queen, and that's why we've had so many missions without her coming back. She will not return until the Archon King and the Viper King have both been engaged. Now why do I want the Queen to come back? Well, the truth is, I have a score to settle with her. She cost us a lot of good troops. She nearly cost us this entire run, and I'm not going to let that slide. So once we get rid of the Viper King, the Queen will then be able to return. So this Snake Boy is essentially just a roadblock for my path to revenge. And we treat him like a roadblock. The turn he activates, he gets overwatched straight into oblivion. Didn't have a chance to do anything. Now that was a touch anticlimactic, but it's to be expected. If the Archon King couldn't touch us, this guy never really had a chance. I should also mention that even though Lucifer is a sergeant, this is actually his first mission. We've obtained the Continental bonus that allows GTS trainees to jump straight to sergeant rank. Now, we're probably too deep into the game for it to be really useful at this stage. It would have been amazing in the early game, but nonetheless, it is still nice to have. Another guerrilla op on a sewer map. Man, we've had a lot of these things, but by this stage, I'm feeling pretty confident, at least until we activate 3 pods at once, including the field commander. But you know what? Even this I reckon we can deal with. As long as there's a single brigadier on the mission and we can abuse Serial, there's really not much that we can't deal with. Of course, when Bismarck can't make a 95% shot, that definitely makes things tougher. Meanwhile, the Hunter shows up, and check this out. Not only can he hit with his rifle, it's a one-shot crit. Then he summons in 2 berserkers and hits us with a stun grenade. And one of the guys he hit is Bismarck, who had the frost bomb and the serpent suit. I don't want to lose Lucifer to bleed out, so I send big money in to grab him and evac. But I stupidly forget that even though picking up a body is a free action, you still need 1 action point spare to do it. So I've basically just wasted her turn. I would have been much better off attacking. This was not smart of me. So one berserker stuns Big Money, and the other knocks out Jetstream. This is really bad luck. And the Hunter follows up this lovely display with another critical hit, this time on Duncakes. Lucifer is about to bleed out, so I use the Icarus jump with Duncakes. We can land right next to our boy Satan, and then evac both of them out. The rest of the team is just going to have to try and survive long enough to reach the evac zone. Well, except for Jetstream, obviously. He's not getting out of here. And then you'll never guess what happens. The Hunter lands a 3rd crit in a row, so Bismarck is immediately sent into bleed out. And his Viper suit has been upgraded too, so he had a good chunk of HP. But it doesn't matter how much HP you've got when literally every single attack the Hunter makes is a crit. We've only got 2 soldiers left who can still attack, and while they do inflict decent damage, it's 2 soldiers against a guy with 50 HP, plus he regenerates lost HP every turn. The plan at this point is really just to evac Bismarck, or at least his corpse, out of the mission. He's got so much good gear that we don't want to lose. Now, by attacking the Hunter, we can trigger Planewalker, which will cause him to teleport. That'll often put more distance between us and him. So it's this weird scenario where damaging him is actually the best way to put distance between us and him. And finally, after his 4th rifle shot, he lands a non-critical hit. This entire mission was just so obnoxious. Now, Meme is out of ammo, meaning he can't reload and get line of sight, so he's not going to be able to attack. Instead, I opt to stabilize Bismarck with Meme's medikit. That's going to at least buy us some time. So our hopes rest on Big Money with her 55% shot. Dear oh dear. But once again she impresses and she makes the hit, bringing the Hunter down to 2 HP. We might actually have a chance after all. So after 5 shots with his rifle, the Hunter actually misses one. Imagine that, I didn't think such a thing was possible. Now, even though he did miss, we also miss on our turn, so that gives the Hunter another chance to hit back, and Big Money is finally sent into bleed out. She survived quite a while, but not long enough. So it comes down to Hunter vs Meme. It's an 88% shot, and all we need is to hit and to not roll minimum damage. As long as we can do that, we win. Of course we roll min damage. Do you reckon the Hunter rolls min damage? Nah, he hits a crit because of course he does. So we've got one last chance, a 67% shot. As long as this hits, we win. If it misses, we lose. It's all or nothing, a 2 out of 3 chance, and we miss. Meme goes into bleed out and this one is over. And this may be the saltiest I've ever been on stream. This mission was absurd. The amount of crits the Hunter scored was ridiculous. And because of that, we've lost a Mimic Beacon, we've lost the Viper King armor. On the very first mission that we deployed it, we've lost the Frost Bomb a second time, and I had actually just built a war suit for big money, so that's gone as well. See, she had rolled Blast Padding as a hidden ability, and I was thinking that, along with a war suit, might make her bulky enough to use as a sacrifice for the chrysalids on the Psionic Gate mission. But that's off the table now. She's gone, she's not coming back. Now Bismarck and Jetstream are still alive, so there's a chance we can get them back. Bismarck in particular would be great, as he has a fair amount of unique loot that we obviously want. But you know what? I'm done. I'm sick and tired of this run. It's just the same cycle over and over. Every time we eke out an advantage, the game just takes it away. So we just need to end this campaign. For better or worse, this needs to be done, and I need to move on with my life. I had been putting off the Hunter due to concerns about will loss. Our roster is thin, and being over-fatigued could cause problems. But we've already got problems, so who cares? We're going to get the Hunter right now. It's time for some revenge. Ideally, the Hunter would have been the first chosen we hit in order to get his rifle, but he had the lowest power level of the three, so he was the least of a threat. That's why I've held off hitting him for so long. But not any longer. He needs to go. I'm sick and tired of always being on the back foot. The first pod is a little bit annoying. We are able to take it out okay, but it costs us multiple explosives to do it. And we ideally want to save these for the Hunter himself, especially since he has Planewalker, and he may be hard to hit. But yeah, it's still a positive. We got rid of the bad guys, and we didn't take any damage. I think that's a fair trade-off. The pod at the elevator, I don't even bother with. We just run right past them. Now this isn't the ideal strat, as it means Ligmac has to sacrifice his concealment, but I really just want the Hunter to die as soon as possible, so it's a price I'm happy to pay. I don't want to spend any more time on these underlings. I'm sick of it. Speaking of underlings, we absolutely murk the lesser enemies in the final chamber, so now it's time for some payback on the edgy boy. Chan does have fear of the Chosen, but she thankfully resists panicking. Brickford's rocket inflicts 1 damage on the Hunter. 1. Now with his 3 points of armor, that means the rocket has rolled 4 damage, which is the minimum damage. Just like Meme on that last mission. But despite the shenanigans, we still eliminate the Hunter this turn, and then we set our sights on the sarcophagus. And the plan here is the same as the usual one: destroy the sarcophagus as quickly as possible while distracting the reinforcements with a meme beacon. We only have a single beacon left, but I did make sure to save it for this point. So the Hunter returns with 50 HP, and this forces Chan to take another will test. Sadly, this time she fails and she panics. However, we have picked up the Mental Fortitude Resistance Order, so by our next turn, she's actually ready to go again. Panic didn't really affect us too much. And as for the Hunter, well, he ends up going down in 2 hits. So it was actually a really easy encounter. And honestly, I wish I had done this before the last guerrilla op. But such is life. Live and learn, I guess. Since we've disposed of the other alien rulers, the Queen now returns. It is looking a bit dodgy for a bit, until I end up using the Lost trick on her. See, the majority of the squad is up too high to be hit by her melee attacks, so she starts running for a nearby drain pipe so that she can climb up. Yeah, I know, this hulking beast is gonna be held up by a single drain pipe. It seems unlikely, but that is how the game works. Now the point is, we can stand someone at the pipe and cut her off, just like we do with the Lost. So this leads to her running further to the back of the building in order to find a way up, and in doing so she actually breaks line of sight. Now if she doesn't have any line of sight, she doesn't get any reaction turns. So she's effectively removed herself from the battle as we press forward towards the evac zone and away from where she is. Duncakes has the Icarus armor, so I do go looking for the Queen with him. We can easily Icarus jump to safety if we need to, and I would like to finish her off here, but I'm just not able to locate her, and the turn timer is running out, so it's better to evac and save the fight for another day. My revenge is gonna have to wait. And while it is annoying that we can't beat her on this mission, it's still better than when she almost squad wiped us the previous time she showed her ugly face. So things are getting better. On the strategic layer, I am training some rookies to replace our recent losses, so having them be able to jump immediately to sergeant rank may end up being useful after all. And while this is happening, I decide it's time to hit the psionic gate. Like I said, this run needs to be over, for the sake of my sanity, or what's left of my sanity anyway. So let's do it. So given big money's gone, Ligmac is the one who's going to serve as our sacrificial lamb. He's picked up Fortify as a hidden perk. This is a free action that gives him an extra 20 defense per turn. It's probably not as good as blast padding in this scenario, but it is the best that we've got. So that's what we're going to go with. And yes, I did just compliment blast padding. Don't get used to that. I'm also bringing multiple medikits so we can top up Ligmac's HP as needed. If he does take any hits from those chrysalids, we want to be able to restore his health and keep him alive. Now the big problem is that all the buried chrysalids seem to be really close together. They've all clustered around the psionic gate, and the last thing we want is Ligmac activating several lids at once and taking multiple attacks before we can heal him. But remember, we do have battle scanners, so we can use those to reveal some of the lids, and then we can catch them by surprise, which is exactly what we want. Now, while we're dealing with these things, we do activate the Gatekeeper, but honestly, by this point in the campaign, we're almost at the end of January 2036. So we've been dealing with Gatekeepers for months in-game time by this point. And we did it when our weapons and our skills weren't nearly as good as they are now. So this egg gets scrambled real quickly. Now, it's not a flawless mission, as a buried lid does get the jump on Chan, but that's a slight annoyance, nothing more. This was a pretty easy victory, and it was really nice not having a chosen to deal with. Then we have a guerrilla op that turns into a bit of a marathon. The Lost are here, so that always slows things down. And as soon as I saw this codex, I just knew that it was going to get hit by the Lost, clone, and then teleport right on top of us in concealment. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I've played this game way too much. So yeah, the mission takes ages, but eventually we are able to move up on the objective. And check this out. Not only is the Berserker Queen here, but her pod activates on the same turn as a second pod with a heavy mech. And this wasn't us walking into them. No, this happened on the enemy turn. The game just decided to have both pods converge at the same place at the same time. And this isn't even a sharpshooter issue. This is just the pod system being obnoxious. Like, why even have pods if they're all just gonna sit on top of the objective in the exact same place anyway? Really annoying here. Now, we can use squad sight to hit the Big Mama from a distance, and she actually starts off by attacking a random Lost. So that's brilliant. We'd much rather she attack them than us. And then Board lands a pretty difficult crit, and she inflicts big damage. And here, the Queen is actually attempting to escape. I think this is the first time since we initially encountered her at that alien facility that she's trying to flee from us. Every other instance, it's been the other way around. But we're not gonna let her do it. This Queen nearly ended our entire run. I am well and truly sick and tired of her nonsense. It's time she joins the rest of the rulers, because Perry can use the Icarus jump. Yeah, Perry, the same guy who was the only one who made it out of that Queen ambush all those missions ago. He's been waiting to settle the score, and there was no way I was gonna terminate the Queen with anyone other than him. So this one's for Bozo, and Cowboy, and Stole, and Q. And the Queen goes down. After all the pain she put us through, vengeance is finally ours. And with her gone, there are no more boss enemies to worry about. No rulers, no chosen, just XCOM and an extremely ticked off commander. I told you we were gonna win this campaign, and I intend to keep that promise. And not only is the Queen done, but I've activated Serial on Perry, so he's able to wipe out a huge amount of enemies in the one turn. I think running out of ammo is the only thing that eventually stops him from slaughtering even more of them. This man is just as over this garbage run as I am. And what's really crazy, what I didn't expect, we actually complete the objective in time. I had pretty much given up on it once the Queen showed up. I didn't think we had a chance, but somehow we pulled it off. So good times indeed. This was a really good mission. I'm feeling awesome after this one. But you know what? The good times, they're not done just yet. See, the very next mission we have a chance to rescue Bismarck. And that means a chance to get our Viper armor and our Frost Bomb back as well. And the map for this mission is actually the same one where we got obliterated by the Berserker Queen. Yeah, the runner's gone so long, the maps are just straight up repeating at this point. But this time, it's like night and day. Like, check out this sector pod. It looks like it's trying to hide in a crawl space to avoid our detection. But you're not avoiding our detection, sector pod. I see you, with murderous intent in my eyes. And check out Chan here. 21 damage with a single shot, and that wasn't even a crit, just bonkers. So needless to say, our boy Bismarck and his valued treasures are aboard the Avenger once more, and I think that marks a record for me, having to recover the Frost Bomb from a captured soldier twice in the one campaign. So as we head to the Forge mission, it's actually nuts that we still haven't done that. We're not in any real danger of losing missions at this point, at least I don't think so. The comeback is well and truly complete. And you can see here I'm bringing one Brigadier in Perry, and the rest of the squad are fairly low level. And this squad combination is going to be the strat for the rest of the game until the final missions. See, losing so many soldiers, 19 to be exact, which I'm pretty sure is also a record for this channel, it's meant that leveling up has been really challenging. Most of those 19 deceased soldiers represent XP that we earned in battle that was then just wasted on troops that we lost access to. So I'm bringing 1 or 2 brigadiers on each mission essentially as babysitters. Between Serial, Death from Above, and Alpha Mike Foxtrot, even one brigadier can deal with most threats that we're going to encounter pretty easily. Plus we have 2 Mimic Beacons again thanks to a recent retaliation mission, so the brigadier can step in if they need to when things get dicey, but otherwise we're trying to rack up as many eliminations as we can with the lower level soldiers. This way they can gain XP and become brigadiers too. I really don't want a scenario where we hit the final mission and then we lose just because I wasn't patient enough to level everyone up fully. So we're taking our time and we're going to make sure that we do this right. But like I said, this mission, even the lower level troops are handling themselves very well. There's really no problem on the Forge mission. Again, sector pods, we've dealt with so many of them by now, that thing's not going to stop us. Hey, Future Drifter here. I just wanted to highlight something from that retaliation mission that Past Drifter just mentioned. Originally, I thought it was a pretty unremarkable battle, which is why I didn't include it in the video. It was only later when a YouTube viewer pointed this out to me that I noticed. Look at Brickford's plasma grenade here. It says it's only doing 1 to 2 damage. It should be doing 5 to 6. And when we throw it, sure enough, a measly 1 damage. The 3 damage you can see there is coming from the exploding car. But even if the 3 was coming from the grenade itself, it's still doing less than what it should. I went back and checked the active dark events before the mission, and the only thing we had was the collectors, which makes the Chosen more likely to try and capture soldiers. There's nothing about explosive damage. So if you have any idea why this is happening, please leave your thoughts in the comments section, because I'm stumped. A couple of people did suggest to me the trooper might have blast padding, but basic troopers don't get that ability, so that's not it. And even if they did get it, 1 damage is still way too low. So like I said, I have no idea why this is happening, but I thought it was worth including. Just another example of how ridiculous this run has been. And now we'll return to your scheduled programming. And we're also overloaded with Elerium cores by this stage, since we can actually win supply raids and pick up loot from downed enemies rather safely. And at one point I think we had 15 of them. Yeah, absolutely crazy how far we've come when we were struggling with 2. So I've taken the time to build some powered weapons, and blaster launchers and shredstorm cannons are a lot more dangerous than the rockets that we've been fielding up until now. So yeah, the missions are pretty safe. The only way I'm going to lose any troops is by making silly mistakes. And I actually do that with Board here when I don't put her in cover. We had concealment and I didn't think any pods would be able to spot her where she was standing, but I was wrong, they can. And we nearly lose her because of it. Now thankfully she survives, but it was looking a bit questionable there for a bit. So I just need to make sure that I'm still being careful. I don't want to get too arrogant. And there's actually a way bigger problem than any danger that the enemies may represent. It's just how boring this process of leveling up is. I mean, we're essentially just grinding, and this process of grinding to get all our brigadiers takes around 4 hours. 4 hours of mindless repetition destroying every enemy we come across. So even when the sharpshooters have actually become really powerful and they can dominate the battlefield, they still suck because we're just wasting time. And the missions take longer than they would if I were just using the brigadiers to do everything. The lower level troops have worse aim, worse damage output, and they don't have access to serial. So yeah, it's a real slog. I'm thankful I had Twitch chat to keep me company, otherwise it just would have been insufferable. Now during this extremely dull period, we do get the base defense mission. Now it actually happens quite quickly after the Forge mission, so a lot of our troops are tired. And of course, we can't bring soldiers out on missions after this one to level them up while they're exhausted. It's actually to the point where I'm just wishing Bradford would stop sending out reinforcements because they're all tired, and having them appear on this mission is just going to take them out of commission for the next one. Meanwhile, the troops we've deployed have the situation handled more than enough, so we really have no need for reinforcements. Bringing out tired troops is just going to extend our grinding process to make it take even longer. It's all just making a bad situation even worse. Which I know that's kind of a recurring theme in this run. It hasn't stopped just yet. But I guess I should focus on the mission itself, and yeah, it's a massacre. There's a building right in front of the Avenger, so we just climb up there and the majority of the troops have both Snapshot and Death from Above by now. So we can just set up on the high ground and absolutely abuse this combination of abilities. All the while we're doing this, Ligmac remains in concealment and gets line of sight on the Disruptor. And our boy Brickford just one-shots it instantly with squad sight. Then Ligmac can retreat, and we don't even have to activate the pod at the Disruptor. We can just leave him right there. So very, very easy outing here. And as much as I've complained this run, I am happy we got the base defense this late in the game. If this had happened early game, it might have been a run ender. And that is part of the reason I held off on doing the story missions for so long. Anyway, with that one done, it's back to grinding. And we actually have a guerrilla op where we can only send sergeants or lower due to the sit rep. And on top of that, we only have 5 soldiers who fit that description. So this could be interesting. Now you'll probably notice there's actually 6 soldiers on the map. We have the continental bonus for a resistance operative to join us on some missions. I don't use him in combat at all, so he's there as basically a cheerleader, I guess. Emotional support maybe? Whatever, he doesn't do anything and he doesn't take any fire. Now normally I would avoid this continental bonus in a solo class run since we obviously can't use the extra soldier, so having them here really just wastes our time. I have to move him around pointlessly every turn. The only reason we have it this time is because I've actually made contact with every single region on the map out of boredom. It was just something to do while we were grinding. Now look at this. We send Bond in to hack the objective. He moves onto the square and nothing happens, so cool. But after he does the hack, the pod behind him randomly activates. Like, what is happening here? They couldn't see him before he did the hack, but somehow they can afterwards? I didn't think that was how line of sight worked in this game. This makes zero sense. This run is still doing everything it can to be annoying. Anyway, I was actually ready for this scenario, and I've placed the evac zone down where Bond is doing the hack. So we can leave if we need to, but somehow our 4 sergeants and 1 squaddie actually take down a gatekeeper, and we win the mission. Now it wasn't an easy fight by any means, but we still pulled it off. The powered weapons and the meme beacons definitely made the difference. But yeah, this was a really good showing from our low-level units here. I was really pleased with this. And during this time, I did complete the story research, and I only learned after doing so that once the story research is complete, you don't receive any more council missions. It's only supply raids and guerrilla ops. And see, that actually really sucks. I wanted a council mission to rescue Jetstream. It would have been another record we could have set for the channel, being able to save the same operative twice in the one campaign. I don't think I've ever done that before. Sadly, it's not to be. We're not going to get a chance to do it. So, sorry Jetstream, sucks to be you, buddy. Anyway, the avatar progress does fill again. We've done really well keeping it down in the late game, but eventually it's always going to max out. That's what it does. And while we could hit an alien facility, there's actually no need to this time. All the soldiers I want to be max level have reached Brigadier rank, so we're finally ready to finish this garbage campaign once and for all. It's taken a long time, like we're in June of the 2nd year in game. I don't think a campaign has ever taken that long in my life. We actually reached the point where Tygan ran out of breakthrough research for us to investigate. And that might be yet another record that I've broken with this one. Don't remember that happening before either. This truly has been a terrible, terrible campaign. Maybe the worst ever, I'm not sure. But what I am sure about is that we need to end this nightmare. Let's do this. The network tower is going to be these 3. Cloud is a stealth holo targeter, while Chan and Pinkerson are damage dealers. Now that being said, Cloud can still inflict massive damage herself if she needs to. Between Chan and Pinkerson, they one-shot crit 3 Archons in this mission, just merciless. Now I do misclick and leave a concealed Cloud out of cover. I could have reloaded the turn, but I just can't be bothered, and she should only take minimal damage anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. And yeah, we win. Quite easily, in fact. I don't really have much else to say. We just destroyed all the bad guys pretty much straight away. And this video is already long enough, so let's just wrap it up, shall we? So here's the final team. Ligmac is the concealed holo targeter, and the other 5 are the Angels of Death. And what goes down on this mission can best be described as therapeutic. At least it was for me. We are just completely bullying Advent. The only damage we take in this first section is when Volpez blows up a sector pod and the explosion destroys the platform that she's standing on, so she takes a little bit of fall damage. But yeah, nothing really to worry about. I think every single soldier has some type of scope and then either an autoloader or an expanded mag, so we can make really effective use of Death from Above and Serial, and it really is a slaughter. It just felt so good. After how much we have struggled in this run, the multiple times it looked like we were finished, and look at us now. No matter what the bad guys throw at us, we just destroy them on the very same turn. I mean, look at this. Duncakes does 18 damage on a dodge. This is absurd. Our sharpshooters have finally become a worthy opponent for the Elders, and there's nothing that can stop them at this point. And obviously, taking the time to get a squad of Brigadiers really made the difference. That +4 damage they get is just so incredibly powerful. Like, any of these guys with blue screen rounds can one-shot a heavy mech like it's nothing. This display truly brings joy to my heart. And as we were heading into the late game, Twitch chat proposed a challenge to me. With the huge damage output our troops have, would it be possible to one-shot a gatekeeper? And so I present to you Duncakes.
How many is that now?
So yeah, we can indeed one-shot a gatekeeper, but I gotta be honest, I wasn't happy with that. See, this pod has 2 gatekeepers, so I wasn't really happy with just one-shotting a single one of them.
Who's keeping score?
There you go. Not only can we one-shot a gatekeeper, we can do it twice in the same turn with the same guy. I would not want to be an avatar right about now. Heading into the final chamber, Ligmac still has concealment. We haven't needed him to attack once this entire mission. Now I try for a precision shot on the avatar with Brickford, but the crit chance doesn't trigger. But even without the crit, the avatar is still only a 2-shot. We can take it down pretty easily. Now one of the Archons does survive on 1 HP, but it misses with its attack, so we don't take any damage. Very nice. The reinforcements are a few Mutons and some Vipers. Now compared to the damage our shots deal, all these enemy types have a laughably low HP, so we're gonna destroy them like it's nothing. Then here comes the second avatar. It has Berserkers with it, which are probably one of the only enemies left that we can't easily one-shot. So we hit them with a blaster launcher, but they still have too much HP. Board's not able to one-shot them, and that's annoying. But look at this. Brickford from literally across the other side of the map smashes the avatar for massive damage. An incredible display there. And it has such low health left, the board can continue her serial chain and wipe it out. So that's 2 down, 1 to go. The Berserkers do survive and Perry is in their sights, but they actually both miss with their attacks and he's fine. Remember, this is the guy who missed multiple 90+% shots. How the tables have turned. Now Advent's the one who can't land any attacks. On our turn, Perry does not miss his attacks this time and we annihilate all the lesser enemies on this side of the map, including the Berserkers. And normally at this point I would be focusing all our attention on the final avatar. But you know what? I'm not going to do that on this run. I take the time to eliminate every single regular enemy from the arena, just because I can. I absolutely despised this run, so it was a really nice feeling leaving nothing in the room breathing. It comes down to a single Viper and the avatar on 1 HP. Yeah, 1. So given this is the end of the run, I decide to finally reveal Ligmac from concealment on the very last turn of the campaign. He deserves to eradicate some of these clowns too. Can't let the other guys have all the fun, can we? Now, truth be told, even though he's only attacking for the first time, he has been helping us the entire mission using his holo targeter from concealment. That's been buffing our aim and our crit chance, so it's been good to have. But yeah, he gets the final kill. I think he's earned it. And with that complete beatdown, we've done it. Well over a year of in-game time, over 1,000 enemies slaughtered, but we've done it. We've beaten XCOM 2 with the most garbage class I've ever used in my life. WotC Sharpshooters. And you'll see here, it says we lost 41 soldiers. That's not actually correct. I'm pretty sure that number includes meme beacons. Like I said earlier, 19 was the actual total. But yeah, 19, that is still a massive number. Like, that's more soldiers than what you start the game with. So what are my thoughts on this class? Well, you can probably guess. I hate them. This run was so frustrating, I even considered not uploading the streams. In some of them, I was just so salty and so miserable. So if you like watching somebody rage and lose his mind, I did end up uploading them on my archive channel. You can check those videos out. But yeah, for a time, this run legitimately made me dislike this game. Now by the time I'm recording this, I finished the run a fair while ago, so I'm feeling much better about things now, but during it, yeah, I was not a happy man. The thing about these sharpshooters is they really just take the issues with vanilla sharpshooters and dial it up to 11. Like, we saw how vanilla sharpshooters suck in the early game, but these guys are way, way worse. And we also saw how vanilla sharpshooters are extremely powerful in the late game, but these guys are even more powerful. And there were multiple occasions here where I thought the run was over. After that Berserker Queen squad wipe where only Perry escaped, and then again after we lost Tony and Gizmo, our only two shredders on the same mission, I thought we were done. And understand, if we had lost, I was not going to restart this run. There was no way I was going through that early game hellscape a second time. I would have simply abandoned the sharpshooters and moved on to the next class. So I'm glad that didn't happen, and I am really proud of myself for being able to bring this one back from the brink. When all seemed lost, we kept the faith and we made the greatest comeback ever on this channel. And for that, even though I hated playing this run, I'm really glad we did it. Being able to obtain the victory here is really, really cool, and it feels really good. And another thing that's good is I do believe the worst of the Long War II classes is now behind us. We've got 3 more of them to go, and I don't see any of them being nearly as bad as these Scrotal Warriors were. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll find out. And I'm not sure when that run will be posted on this channel, but I do hope you'll join me for it when it happens. So I thank you for watching and giving me your time. I know this was a long one. If you enjoyed watching my suffering, please consider supporting by subscribing and leaving a like and a comment. And remember, you can get early access to videos just like this one for only a few bucks a month on my Patreon. The link to that is in the description. So that's it from me. Until next time, have a great day.
Gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find what you love and excel, yeah. Push and pull and repel any hate, go create what you want, feel compelled, yeah. And once you finally get a taste of the race, you'll never look back once you felt that.